I just took a giant drink of water because I'm getting so close, I might actually be able to finish this today. Chapter 35. While John dealt with the sight by immediately turning away and walking away, and the Earth Vriska dove into a nearby bush for safety, Vriska is contending with her predicament through willful denial. She's resolved to do everything in her power to prevent herself from thinking about the situation directly behind her. It is a situation which, if she could bear to look at it, would strike her as the precise intersection between the most humiliating moment of her existence, an unprecedented circus mishap, and a gruesome crime scene. Her attempt to ignore the unspeakable catastrophe behind her may nearly have worked, if not for the reminder provided by the many fresh bloodstains on her shirt. Not only stains of her own familiar cerulean hue, but others of a most unwelcome color mingling with them. A color she never imagined she'd see contaminating her cool and casual ensemble, and certainly not in a context like this. Her attempt to distract herself, to delay the inevitable engagement with her poor judgment, would not fly for much longer. Sooner or later, she would have to turn around and confront the fact that she just kissed a very smelly clown, head on. No, she doesn't want to. She won't. There's a rustling in the grass behind her as Gamzee shifts his grotesque supine length. Nope, she covers her ears. She remembers the shame and excoriation of her childhood, the fear, the pressure, being coerced to do awful things to undeserving kids, all that embarrassing effort she spent trying to emulate her ancestor. She threw every bit of herself into that role, but in recent years, reflecting on the charade has only made her cringe. And in what couldn't have been more than an hour ago, she was on the precipice of watching the glorious defeat of Lord English after unleashing a secret weapon that she went to the bother of retrieving and wielding against him. And then, no, she doesn't want to dwell on that moment. It was almost as bad as kissing a juggalo. Almost. But nothing can compete with this. Nothing could even come close. Yet as she stands there, feeling soiled and ashamed, there's no denying it. The moment she stuck her tongue in the heinous mouth of that frisky, unwashed jester, she began jackhammering through the stubborn concrete of a rock bottom like she was digging up the corpse of a mob snitch.
Hey, Vriska, my bootylicious baby bitch. Your bad-boned daddy is getting to be a chilly motherfucker from this dank summer breeze. How about we get our wicked snuggle on down in this grass we just made all nasty in?
She shudders. Somehow, during her self-incriminating reverie, she managed to forget that she's not even Vriska anymore. She's now Vriska. She scans the bushes and spots her. The 16-year-old girl who'd somehow earned the right to call herself Vriska. The adopted teen daughter of Rose and Kanaya Miriam Lalonde. The person who, for all anyone knew, might be an exact genetic double of Vriska herself. Not that she had any grounds to object. She missed her shot, snatched shame from the jaws of glory, and washed up on the shores of this candy-coated shithole of an approximation of what a paradise planet might look like to certain individuals. The small sob she's been stifling finally comes out. Tears cut through the oily, shining mask of blue, purple, and mud on her face.
Hey, beautiful. Is something motherfucking the matter? We can all open up at each other about the sad noise happening in our bosom now that we all made the sordid pledge to the practice of wicked intimacy on the motherfucking regular.
Vriska nearly vomits, but holds it together. She wipes the tears off her face in a flurry of indignant motions, smearing the blood around. She looks at her hands, notices the blood, and continues cleaning her face, using her tears as a solvent and wiping the blood on her shirt. Gamzee, can you just not talk for just a little while so I can, I don't know, just be quiet. Her final sniffle is a snort of anger. If nothing else, she's learning something about herself today. Nothing sobers her up emotionally quite like the post-amorous insubordination of a raunchy clown. It's almost like a smelling salt. She sneers, reveals a fang, and spins on her heel to face him. Did you hear what I fucking said? His infuriating exclamation was just a whiff of the smelling salt, actually looking directly at him. Again, is upending the whole barrel and pouring it out all over her face. She recoils involuntarily, but regroups. Her gaze sweeps across his entire ungainly form from head to foot. He's got his head propped up with one arm, elbow in the grass. His legs are crossed. His face is a disaster. One eye swollen shut, nose broken, widely smiling mouth split vertically down the lips. And hanging from his mouth is that a baby bottle? She doesn't even want to think about where he might have been concealing it all this time. What sort of milk was that? It's another question she immediately wishes she hadn't asked herself. She curls the other side of her lip to reveal both fangs now. She stomps forward, plants her left foot in the ground, and uses her right to punt the baby bottle clean out of his mouth, sending it flying several hundred yards to land just beyond a distant row of trees. The rubber nipple remains stuck in his clenched teeth, his face now coated with a good portion of the punted bottle's milk.
Ah, motherfuck, sugar puss. My netta nectar.
Vriska presses her foot down on his chest and pins his back flush against the grass. He exhales with a startled wheeze at the sudden force. You better fucking listen up, Makara. I don't know what you may have thought this was. Whatever the fuck it was that just happened here. But let me clue you in. It was nothing. Nothing happened here. Do we understand each other, you reprehensible, malodorous piece of shit?
Honk.
She glares down at him with an intensity that would cause any other man to wither, were he not a reeking pile of circus manure. Gamzee's expression, however, remains steadfast in its vaguely lewd sense of serenity. He simply gazes back at her, his smile slowly broadening. The milk seems to be mixing with the blood on his face, slightly lightening the tint of the purple. She hears a faint digital clicking somewhere. What is that? It seems to be coming from behind her. She turns around. What the fuck do you think you're doing? At the end of his long, outstretched arm, his hand is working a smartphone. He's smearing blood on the screen as he's typing a text to someone. Even at a casual glance, Vriska can tell he's going to the bother of alternating capital and lowercase letters in the text, making it take more than twice as long. Somehow this makes her even more pissed off about it than if he were just broadcasting their snogging fiasco without the use of a typing quirk.
I got to fucking tell my number one inverter brother about what I just got did. He and I aren't as tight as the boys we used to roll as, but he should get his kick on about what a highly unanticipated yet bitchin' piece of hot and heavy horseplay I just made to partook.
You were just made to? Why, you're not telling Karkat about this. You're not telling anyone. Do you hear me, clown?
Oh, motherfucking shame on me for failing to recognize up sooner how cute you are when you're angry. Ugh. Now why don't you come all settle your worked up whittler ass down here with your salty new rumpus uncle so I can snap some motherfucking selfies, my firm yet slippery little passion peach?
Give me that! She snatches the phone out of his hand, holds it from either side, and breaks it in half. She then spikes both pieces down at him, missing but causing him to flinch nonetheless. No selfies, no texts, no nothing. Which fucking part of you're not telling anyone is so hard to understand? That never happened. Not a single fucking word of this is ever going to be breathed, whispered, or honked to anybody. Least of all, any insinuation that this is something I made you do. You get me, fuckface? I didn't make you do anything. You were slobbering all over my fucking foot while I was beating the shit out of you. I saw that look on your face. I saw your codpiece was like, okay, never mind that. I mean, once we were actually, you were totally don't even try to convince me you weren't like, why am I even talking about this? I don't need to justify myself to a disgusting, horny piece of filth like you. Gamzee's expression changes slightly. He retains his unfortunate aura of amorous placidity, but now there's a hint of sadness.
I don't know about all the business you said, honey nips. I've got to be feeling that wonder in my heart which says that maybe I got erratically bushwhacked here. I'm so confused. I don't hardly know which way is up anymore about my original wantings for the nasty dance we just did. Maybe the truth of the shit is more like I got the advantage taken of me.
Vriska's face contorts with rage. You son of a bitch! This was consensual! If anyone didn't consent to this horror show, it was me, retroactively.
Ugh. Vriska, I gotta motherfucking say, This whole experience has left me motherfucking feeling a little bit uncomfy. Uncomfy, unrespected, used, maybe also just an eensy-weensy, itty little bit unsafe.
I don't care if you feel unsafe. You're a lying, disingenuous puddle of sideshow puke, and I don't believe for a second you meant any of that. The only thing that matters here is that you keep your fucking mouth shut about what we just did.
My main squeeze, Vriska, and borderline sexual villain. I got some reasons of self-protection against your problematic hoilers that I should keep the wicked shit zipped, just like you say. Tell it to me fucking straight, Turbo Tush. Do these look like loose lips to you?
If Vriska were to be honest, Gamzee's swollen, battered mouth was just about the most structurally incontinent feature she'd ever seen on a person's face. That limp, floppy maw couldn't keep a cantaloupe secure, much less a secret. She drops down and straddles him in a way that is unmistakably non-amorous, even to an extraordinarily obtuse Randy Juggalo. She puts her shaking hands around his neck and grips tight. She positions her face inches from his, hissing hot breath through her clenched teeth. No one is gonna find out about this, you fucking bastard. No one will ever know, so help me God. Vriska is so furious, she has no way of pinpointing the exact moment her intent stopped being intimidating him to silence and started being guaranteeing his silence forever. She knows this imposter was never a real god tier. She's always known, just like everyone else. Once he's gone, he'll be gone for good. She just needs another minute. Her grip grows tighter. She feels the throbbing pulse beneath her hands gradually subside. Her arms flail, grab at hers, clutch her wrists. He's alarmingly strong, but at this particular moment, not as strong as her. And then she lets go. Her face is frozen, and her repellent mask is exhibiting the perfectly undetectable difference between terror and ecstasy. He's dead. Vriska exhales forcefully, staggering to her feet, shaking. She backs up a few steps, studying the corpse. If her body language signals any remorse or sadness, the witness in the bushes certainly can't tell. Beep. Oh shit! Vriska had already forgotten about her somehow. Her stylishly dressed teen duplicate, who surely just witnessed not only the original feat of debauchery, but all the compromising activity which followed as well. Vriska would probably need to have a few words with her. Vriska stands up slowly from the bush, obviously trying not to look at the lifeless clown. She puts a hand behind her head and seems to be casting about desperately for the right thing to say during such a moment. But soon it's clear she's given up. Vriska doesn't blame her. She can't imagine there being anything in anybody's life that could adequately prepare them to have a snappy response ready for a situation like this. Hey, what's up? Thank fucking God. Maybe if Gamzee's dead, we don't have to read any more fucking horrendous, uncomfortable garbage like this shit. God, I fucking... Every Gamzee scene has just been like... I mean, there's been some funny ones. I'm not gonna lie. There have been some funny ones, but like, so many of them have just been just bad to read. just not like, you know? Like, fuck. Chapter 36. The moment John caught a proper glance of Vriska and Gamzee going at it in the bushes, he was done. He simply had no further capacity to deal with any of it. He just fucked off. A few hours of aimless wandering through the sky brought him back here to his old house. He hasn't lived here in years, but it feels exactly as it had when he last left it. It's like no time had passed at all. John leans back in his dad's desk chair, stares at the ceiling, and listens to the war. The steady drone of weaponized airships up above has become so commonplace in everyday life that he barely even notices it anymore. But now he focuses, trying to pick out the individual sounds. No matter how hard he tries, he can't tell which ship belongs to which side, or how many there are. He doesn't know whether they're coming or going. Rose, Kanaya, and their daughter are probably up there somewhere by now. The washing machine chugs along in the next room. In John's experience, troll blood is incredibly difficult to wash out of clothes. His t-shirt is probably going to be Vriska colored for the rest of its life. Somehow, no matter what, he always seems to end up back in this house. It's been through the medium and 2 different universes and come out of it with only a slight warping to the foundations. Everything is coated in dust. He hasn't bothered to turn any lights on or change any of the bulbs that have burned out over the past few years. He thought he heard someone moving around upstairs a while ago, but he didn't go up to check. He hasn't gotten up for how long has passed? He has no idea. Creak, creak. God, this house is rattly. It could be a wild animal up there. Could be a thief. John doesn't think he has anything he'd regret losing. At least not anything that he hasn't already lost. His dad's study looks the same as it did when the day he moved out. Figurines jauntily hung photographs of famous funny men, even the dent in the floor from the time Rose dropped a safe on a bunch of troublesome imps. He'd always meant to hire someone to fix it, he just never got around to it. It's the perfect room for a slow-motion existential crisis, if that's what you can even call whatever he's going through. Maybe it's not so much of a crisis as a critical cessation of his ability to give a shit. Where an hour ago he'd been feeling blissfully unburdened by his solipsistic revelation, now the significance of everything insignificance overwhelms him. He wishes he could find comfort in the frivolity like Rose has, but it's impossible for him to delude himself. If nothing matters, what is the point of doing anything? Where is he supposed to go from here? How do you figure out how to fill your time when you have all of a meaningless eternity ahead of you? He's not sure why his brain thought he'd find an answer in this place. He swivels back and forth on his father's dusty desk chair, staring listlessly up at the featureless white expanse of the ceiling of the study. His mind runs in exhausting circles until he dozes off to a lullaby of distant sonic booms. When next jostled awake, it's a figure that looks uncomfortably like Dad? As John blinks away the sleep from his eyes, the man looming over him comes into focus. It's not his dad, it's Jake Crocker, who actually is his dad, but in a far more esoterically bullshit way than the man who used to fill this study with pipes and black licorice. John sits up straight in the chair and rubs at his eyes. Jake, what are you doing here? How are you here? Did something happen with Jane? Oh, nothing happened exactly. Just thought we would pop in for a bit of R&R with the old pal. Isn't that right, Tav? Jake scrunches up his face the same way Harry Anderson does when he's lying. Across the room, Tavros Crocker fumbles his grasp on a particularly hideous fanciful harlequin. One of its pointy shoes snaps off. Cripes. Sorry, Uncle John. I'll replace it. It's fine. That's actually just a piece of garbage. John thinks he might still be dreaming, though if his subconscious were controlling the scene, there would be a few altercations. Aren't you cold? I am, in fact. These old duds. Jake snaps the elastic on his pair of red underpants. It's the only thing he's wearing. Well, you see, Janie bought all my other clothes. She had a certain way she liked me kept out, and well, I didn't want to bring anything that belonged to her when I left. Nothing she might miss. You took me, Jake winces. And you took you. Jake's wince deepens. Then I dare say I made the right choice, not rustling the bushes and making off with the inanimate belongings department. Wouldn't want to give her any more reasons to go all retributive. She's got a lot to worry about right now. Incredibly busy woman, you know. Over by the desk, Tavros's eyebrows have disappeared up under his bangs, but he doesn't say anything. He has the air of a boy who's spent all his life not saying anything. Okay, so, I guess I'm just gonna move past the fact that you're 90% naked in my house. I'm not forgetting about it. We've got to address that at some point. But I guess we can put it on the back burner for now. Are you trying to tell me that you left Jane? Ooh, when you put it like that, it sure sounds, well, I suppose that is what it looks like, isn't it? What I did. That's the thing that's looking like that. Whew. Jake is one whole wince now, and John knows he should invite him to sit down and maybe offer him something to drink, or at least a pair of pants. But all this is another reminder of how inescapably preposterous every aspect of this reality has become. So I guess this is the thing that's currently happening now. What exactly do you want me to do? Well, I suppose I was hoping you might be willing to help me and we Tavvy out a bit here. Help you out? John produces a dry laugh. It's pretty funny. I remember trying to help you out for years and you never seemed interested back then. Jake was apparently not expecting John's sharp tone. He flinches back like a kicked dog, or a dog who's been kicked so many times he assumes any helping hand is a slap. All the same, John finds it hard to feel much sympathy. Who is Jake? What's standing in front of him now, anyway? Has he always been this contemptibly pathetic? Or is this too a function of how the absurdity of this contorted reality? It's hard to be sure. Are Jake's struggles worth any more of John's guilt and emotional energy than a sim stuck in a pool without a ladder? Look here, chap. Sometimes not everything is so simple. It isn't as if I could have just walked out the door whenever I wished. I mean, yeah, kind of could have. Not now, but years and years ago, back before everything got so warlike and tempestuous. I was gonna say stupid, but yeah. Well, it's not as if Janie got like this overnight. None of this happened overnight, John. It's just like, you gotta take a dip in the water and everything starts out cool and fine, but then it just keeps getting hotter and hotter, gradually, degree by degree. So slowly, by the time the water's boiling, you don't even realize you're being scalded alive. John isn't listening to Jake anymore. He's looking at Jake's son, who has returned to going methodically through the stuff on his desk, moving objects around, looking like he wants to shrink down into nothing. Tavros, who looks more like him than even Harry Anderson does. Something in John's stomach churns. The ridiculous fate of this facsimile of his friend is one thing, but Tavros? If things really are the way they seem, isn't he John's fault too? Didn't his reckless decision really author a child, just for it to suffer? John finds himself feeling a little sick. Are you guys, I don't know, hungry or whatever? I think I have a frozen pizza. He brings them into the kitchen, which still has all the old appliances from decades ago. The stand mixer, the automatic can opener, the milkshake frother. He never uses any of this junk. Clutters the place up, and he should have cleaned it out years ago. He just kept coming up with excuses for why he had to leave it as it was. John has never been much of a drinker, but fortunately Jake English is never found without a bottle these days. He's got a 40-year-old whiskey that he grabbed on his way out. Apparently his unwillingness to steal from Jane did not extend to her liquor cabinet. Tavros takes one look at the bottle in his father's hand and heads upstairs. Maybe that's for the best. It's getting hard for John to look straight at him. Sorry for being, I don't know, a bitch. It's just kind of been a rough forever. No offense taken, chap. Whiskey? As you know, I'm not in truth the biggest fan of the stuff, but just gets the job done right quick, eh? John accepts the offered glass and takes a sip. Regardless of the existential status of this reality, the alcohol tastes just as harsh and bitter as he remembers it. Jake swirls the rocks in the glass, looking queasy despite his proclamation of tolerance. John, do you think I'm a bad person? That's certainly not a question John ever expected to hear come out of Jake's mouth. He hadn't thought of him capable of that degree of introspection. Wait, what? Do you think I've ruined my whole entire life and all my relationships? Especially the most important relationship in one's life, the divine and unbreakable bond between a man and his son? Not sure if I'm the best person to be talking about this, considering I kind of did the same thing. But no, I don't really think that. It's not as if anything that's happened to you is your fault, like, existentially. Or, like, even non-existentially, I guess, even in straightforward, non-metatextual jerk-off terms. It's also not your fault. Your wife has been treating you like shit. May all be my fault in both an existential and non-existential capacity, so I wouldn't sweat it too much either way. Eh? What do you mean? I don't really think you'd understand. All I'm saying is you're alright, I think. I think you're doing the best you can. I don't blame you for anything, Jake. Jake grimaces. In the dim kitchen lights, his 5 o'clock shadow looks like a bruise. I wish I could tell you hearing that was a load off my mind, John. The me of yesteryear probably would have drunk to your health and exclaimed, "That's grand, old chap. I'm off to wrestle with a robot engaged in dalliances and whatnot. Except I would have been drinking flat cherry coke back then, probably. Gran left an astonishing amount of cherry coke behind when she died and took forever to get through it all. That's pretty gross. Different strokes for different folks, I suppose. Anyway, my point is, maybe you should blame me. Maybe I need someone to blame me for once. Huh? I think I'm starting to realize that I've been going through life with the mindset that nothing has ever really been within my control. Maybe it's been the people I surround myself with. Jenny always seemed so sure of what was right and what she wanted. One of those things was me. I don't think I ever really tried to challenge her. Not when it mattered. And before her, there was Dirk. Oh boy. Dirk would have written me out an annotated schedule for every minute of my day if I'd asked him to. Or, especially if I hadn't asked him to. Dirk, he... Maybe it's best if we don't dwell too much on that. Two of them share a moment of obligatory silence for something long dead and gone. Someone long dead and gone. In a way, I think I've found all that comforting. Have you ever wanted to let someone make the tough choices for you? John wonders if everything being out of his control would make him feel better. Even if he weren't presently stuck sucking on this bitter cosmic red pill, he can't imagine being particularly happy with this world state. Maybe it just would have made it all the more soul-crushing. Or maybe he is doing exactly what Jake has always done. In a certain light, isn't describing all this mess to some unconscious influence he might have had over the metaphysical shape of reality, just a way to brush off his simpler failures as a man and a father? Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to think I've been a bit of a fool about it all, though. It's easy to shrug it all off when it's just your own life being jostled about, but this is something I should have been thinking about when old Tavvy was born, isn't it? Too little too late. I've not done right by that boy at all. Even now, all I'm doing is making excuses for myself. Phew. It's hard for John to disagree. Probably wouldn't do much good to say it, though. It's not like John wants to torture the guy, whatever the status of his realness attribute. Jake, I guess I actually don't know you that well. But I think there's a difference between making excuses and just giving reasons. There's reasons for what you did, sure, and I guess you can think of it as an excuse, but that's only if you don't make the effort to start trying to fix yourself. And I mean, okay, look. You left. You're doing it. You're making it happen. You've got your son out of there. Better a decade late than never, I guess. You're right, John. I did do that, didn't I? Nobody swooped in through the window and rescued me. I did it myself. I finally stood up for what's right, and I'm gonna make way for a new and better me. I have my immortal life ahead of me. There's no point in sitting around and hating myself and regretting the past. John's mouth opens and closes dumbly. That's it? I thought it would be harder to convince you. Jake grins, and the effect is incendiary. It's brilliant. His glee is lighting up the room. John blinks. It's literally lighting up the room. A faint but steady glow pulses from Jake's body, radiating like heat from a fire. John can't help but recoil a little, like a vampire in sunlight. He wishes bitterly that it could be so easy for him to just forget all his fears and regrets and forge forward with the honest, dumb conviction that if he just tries hard enough, all his problems can be chased away. Golly, John, Gee willikers, do you hear that? Music swells out of nowhere. For a moment, John thinks the ridiculous noise is coming from Jake, too, but he quickly pieces together that Tavros must have found the old record player upstairs. Jake sets his untouched glass of whiskey aside and starts tapping his fingertips on the kitchen countertop, his aura of hope pulsing brighter. Then, with a dignified flourish, he raises an arm. John? Yeah? Take my hand. What? Why? Jake snatches John's hand and pulls him in, catching him off guard. John floats, an instinctive reaction when he's knocked off balance. Dance with me. Oh, Jesus Christ. This is not the sort of jazz you dance to. It is definitely not the sort of jazz you waltz to. John isn't sure there is that type of jazz. Jake leads relentlessly, but it's the glow of his ridiculous god-tier magic that brings John down enough for his feet to touch the ground. Whether John wants it or not, there's something inescapably infectious about Jake's senselessly optimistic energy. Even if they do end up stepping on each other's feet, gamboling around like newborn giraffes, who cares? What's the harm in dancing? I'm excited, John. I haven't been excited in such a long time. It's just so great to be out on my own, here with you after so long. You and me and Tav. Gosh, we're gonna make such a team. 2 crockers and an eggbit. A cracking good comedy to be sure. Heck, perhaps I'll take my good old name back. Who knows, maybe Tav would want to be in English too. This place is a bit smaller than we Tavvy is used to, but I'm sure we'll make do. You want to move in with me? How? Yes. Suppose I'd ought to run the plans by you first before letting my imagination run wild, eh? I'm sure I could find somewhere else to stay, but I must say I do feel much safer bringing Tav up with the family. Jake launches into a real doozy of a spin, which John supposes may well have knocked the last of his sense out of him. Sure. Why the hell not? Jake gives John a twirl, which sends him spinning across the floor in his socks. He stumbles and falls over, which is a bit of a comical display in his windy reflexes. Makes Jake laugh uproariously. Being flung from Jake's orbit of hope and change is a little like being dashed with a bucket of ice water, though. All of John's gloom and malaise surges back to the fore like air filling a vacuum. He feels hungover. Oof. John lies immobile on the floor tile. Jake draws up to look down at him in confusion, striking a pose that is both dazzlingly model-esque and doubtlessly completely unintentional. Huh? What are you looking so glum for there, chap? The usual. Do you need help getting up? Nah, I'm cool down here, on the floor. You know, John, maybe we ought to embark on this journey of self-betterment together. What do you say, my boy? What? I got my Tavvy out. Have you been thinking about making amends with Roxy and such? Maybe give her the push she needs to get out herself? Not really. And why in the hell not? Like I said, you wouldn't really understand. I don't think there's really much of a point in me trying to talk to Roxy. She's not what? John hauls himself up to his feet and moves to the living room. Jake follows, but John now ensures that there's a healthy enough physical distance between him and Jake's black hole of physical optimism. You can't rightly go and blame that woman for all your troubles, John. I'm not blaming her at all. Then what are you saying, Johnny boy? John sighs and drops down onto the couch. He stretches out so Jake can't take the seat beside him. That even if I could talk to her and try to set things straight, why bother? She may not even be, real, strictly speaking. Eh? Like I said, you wouldn't understand. Trust me, it's a whole lot of crazy stuff. You're right, that is an awfully crazy thing to say. Not real, why, I just saw Roxy yesterday. She's as solid and real a person as you or me, John. It's hardly becoming of a man to say something so dismissive, even if it's tough to know what a lady is thinking from time to time. I'm not. What's that now? I fucked up too bad. Too long ago. It's just too late to change anything now. So what? Huh? So what if it doesn't change anything? Won't it matter to you? To your family? To see you care? Won't it make you feel better to try? To at least be able to say that when the chips were down, you gave it your honest all? And what about Harry Anderson? Do you really want to go the rest of your life knowing you never tried to be the father your son needed? Hearing the name is like a blow to the chest. Little Harry Anderson. His son, who he held and fed and taught and raised into a young man. Despite it all, he's always been so unbelievably proud of that boy. If Roxy isn't real, then his son must be even faker. Something about the thought makes John feel more rotten than anything else. Maybe it's some aspect of his basic biology buried deep down at the core of his lizard brain, but that makes him that makes him want to reject what he knows is true. The allure of denial, of the anesthetic hope radiating from Jake's epically sculpted body, is difficult to turn away from. What, John? Are you crying? Jake, do you have Roxy's number? This chapter was actually really sweet, to be honest. I actually really liked this whole interaction between these two. Chapter 37. Because Vriska only spent a few minutes on Prospect before her dream self was whisked away to the battlefield the moment she ascended to her god-tier form, she never exactly got to enjoy Prospect life as much as some of her friends did, which by all accounts involved a lot of leisure time, floating around, lounging about on golden crenulations, and looking at pretty much the only thing there was to look at on Prospect, the big blue sphere full of prescient clouds known as Skya. She's certain Terezi must have spent more than her share of time ogling the fluffy nimbus forms, or sniffing in that direction at least. This must have been what life was like. This must have been what life on Prospect felt like, Vriska thinks, as she adjusts her head to a slightly more comfortable position on the fresh clown carcass she's now using as a pillow. She lets out a long exhale, feeling more relaxed than she's felt in a long time. The clouds aren't showing her any visions, but that's okay. She realizes you can see whatever you want to see in a cloud if you spend a long enough time looking at its shape. All that really requires is a willingness to let yourself waste the time. A willingness she only just discovered minutes ago, since wringing the life from a libidinous harlequin. I think that one is a sort of snake. A snake with a strangely big head. Nah, it's a pipe. A what? It's the thing you smoke with. Oh, you mean like the human marijuana I've heard Dave ramble about sometimes? God, you really did grow up on an alien planet, didn't you? Yes, as a matter of fact, I did. From the world which was home to the race you yourself are apparently a member of. Yeah, but I'm actually normal. No offense. None taken. You're a lot like me, really. I mean, unsurprisingly, shouldn't be shocking news. You just kind of remind me of my mom. Not in many ways. I just mean, you say shit that makes it obvious this isn't where you grew up. How is Kanaya, by the way? Boring and old. Old and boring as fuck. Sounds about right. I mean, older than us by a lot. But you knew her when you were the same age, so that's why I said that. Fuck it. She's like regular, a basic ass mom. She's fine, I like her. Both my moms are alright. They're a little obsessed with all this war shit, though. Oh, yeah? Yeah. Well, people get hella bent out of shape about war and politics. Same shit as always. You're right. Guess that's how it was in my culture, too. Vriska doesn't seem to have a response to this. Her parents have told her many tales of Alternia, and her curiosity about the subject was satiated some time before she entered high school. She shrugs and turns her attention back to the sky. Another nimbus cloud wanders lazily into view and catches Vriska's eye due to its peculiar shape. That one there. That's some sort of squat can-like building, right? What? Like the ridiculous structures my friends used to build with the mayor. Hey, is the mayor still around? Mayor's dead, dude. Shit! I love the mayor. Everyone loved the mayor. It's in our damn history books. Wow. You see what I mean, right? That one? You don't know anything. Kinda cute, actually. What? Then what is it, smartass? It's a cake. A birthday cake? See? Those are candles? It's so obvious. Oh, like those shitty things John's dad was always making. I guess so. What's with all the clouds shaped like John stuff? Like, that one there. That's a big dollop of shaving cream, right? Nah, it's just a normal cloud, I think. Fine, bad example. But that one, that's definitely a human hat. Oh yeah, totally is. Just a fucking sky hat, right there. Is Earthsea always like this? I don't know. I never noticed. Vriska scans the sky. She notices a few more John-specific cloud shapes. Ghost over there, a beagle post just overhead. But the more she stares at them, the more she realizes her ability to recognize the shapes is beginning to fade. They start to resemble fluffy, amorphous blobs. Was it all just in her imagination? Maybe this is just crazy nonsense, actually. Seeing shapes in clouds, I mean. Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe the truth just makes me kind of nervous? What truth? Don't tell him I said this, but I think John is just an extremely powerful being, even when he sucks. And he certainly does appear to suck in this reality. And yet, the uneasy feeling is there. It's a vague feeling I've had in the back of my mind for a long time, but it really hit me when I was talking to him earlier. It's disturbing to think about that much power bottled up in one stupid nerd who'll never understand it. What power are you even talking about? Like, lame wind powers? No, I mean, the power to shape reality, even without intending to. Like, just falling backwards into the most insanely overpowered bullshit when the rest of us have to work our asses off for a fraction of that kind of power and relevance. He could rewrite everything that ever happened if he wanted. He could probably even bend reality to his will in certain ways if he didn't have the slightest idea what he was doing, which he usually doesn't. Probably managed to be more relevant than I could ever dream of being, even when he was dead. It's a little depressing to think about, actually. No, it's not. Harry's dad is a joke. He's a washed-up loser. He's not worth feeling shitty about at all. Wow. You know what? You're right. Man, that is such a good attitude. Why didn't I say that? I used to say shit like that. Vriska turns to face Vriska, popping her head a little higher up on the torso to get comfortable. The Vriskas have become virtually oblivious to the fact that a strangled juggalo is currently functioning as a throw pillow. It feels right, natural even, as if he was never meant to serve any purpose other than that of a deceased soft vehicle for head and neck support between two blossoming friends. Hey, can I just ask, why were you making out with this ridiculous shithead? Wow, can we maybe not talk about that? I'm fucking embarrassed. I'm not even judging. It's not like I can blame you. Sometimes a girl just needs to give up her dignity for a while and kiss a dumb clown. That does a lot to explain my relationship with Harry, actually. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Let's just call it a brief and inadvisable catharsis through fleeting clown lust and agree to never speak of this again. You got it. But anyway, I was trying to make a point. I have to say, I'm almost a little jealous of you. Jealous? Why? I've done fuck all. Go to high school and that's about it. Haven't you, literally ascended to godhood? Created multiple universes and, killed guys and stuff? Yeah, I did do all that stuff. Didn't you mind control some idiot to jump off a cliff and he got paralyzed, but then you started dating him or something? Yeah, that was before I killed him. It's cool though, we made up. As ghosts, I mean. Well, a different copy of me did that, but I think it still counts. Whatever. It's just one thing I did. Who can even keep track of this stuff? Didn't you blind some obnoxious bitch one time? Hey! Some of this stuff is kind of private. Anyway, the point wasn't to go strolling down memory lane or some of the badass things I've done. Not that there isn't a lot of great material there. I'm just saying, with the life you're living here, you seem free. Free to just be yourself and be cool and not really care too much about other people's horse shit. I've spent so long caring about what other people thought of me. Mainly that they saw me as important or making a difference. Such a futile struggle sometimes. I thought I was doing so well and getting so close to the big prize. And then I end up here. It's like a big joke. Sometimes it feels like the real freedom is just understanding that. And when you do, it comes through in your personality. It's a lot easier to just seem cool, you know? I guess. This is really funny. I feel like such a big fuck up. Because now that I'm saying this, I realized there was a person like that I met once. Like you, sorta. It was just another version of myself. She was genuinely happy and living her best life, even though she was ironically a ghost. But something about her attitude set me off, so I ripped her to pieces. And I sort of stole her girlfriend. Holy shit. I know, I'm terrible. No, not really. This all sounds kind of legendary, to be honest. No, I know how it sounds. Just please don't look at me as some sort of role model, okay? This isn't good. The point is, it's bad. Take it from me. Don't do this shit when you start modeling yourself after some mental image you have of a cooler version of yourself. It just sucks. Alright, whatever you say. Ugh. This isn't going the direction I was hoping. The point is, I was so mad at her. That happy ghost version of myself who was free of everything. I was probably mad because she got to be who she really was without stressing about it, which is something I never felt like I was allowed to have. Well, you can now, right? The fuck is stopping you? I guess so. I wonder what the point would be. What do you mean? I could be a better version of myself than I am, but then who would even be around to notice? I would. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that's great. And it's nice talking to you and getting all this stuff on my chest. It's not what I meant, though. I left the people I cared the most about behind. What's the point of becoming your best self if the people most important to you aren't around to witness it? Aren't all your friends here now, though? I know they're a bunch of old fucks now, but... No, they are. That's not what I meant. Ugh, this is hard to explain. I guess I mean there's someone specifically I fell out of touch with who it feels like I'll never get to see again. Oh. Maybe... Vriska thinks for a while on her next statement. She needs the time to let a thought she'd never had before arrange itself into words. Maybe that's why I'd hated my ghost self so much. Why? Because I just had a sense. On some level, I knew she was right. She was happy and honest with herself. That's what made her a version of myself who was actually worthy of someone I cared about. Don't get me wrong. We had a nice time for a few years living on that meteor. It was a good, stable, pale relationship. But that's all it was. Couldn't really connect in a deeper way because I was still the way I am, I guess. Layers and layers of armor and defenses. I had some mysterious feeling that weak ghost version of myself was always meant to form the kind of connection with her that I never could. She didn't have any of that stuff getting in the way. Which is probably why I flipped out at her. The person you're talking about, it kind of sounds like you love her. What? No. Okay, whatever. I don't believe this. I mean, maybe. Sorta. It's a complicated feeling. It actually doesn't sound that complicated, but again, whatever. I don't know. I still feel sort of messed up about this. I don't think I can pinpoint exactly how I feel. Maybe you can't boil it down to one quadrant at all. Who are we talking about here? I don't think I can talk about this anymore. Oh god, it's not my mom, is it? Or one of them? Oh fuck no, not them. Anyway, they're living on this planet. Remember I said I'd probably never see her again? Yeah. You're just talking about the girl you blinded that one time, aren't you? Maybe I'm not fucking stupid. I know some lore. Vriska rolls her eyes against the clown cadaver to face the sky again. Even if this is another near duplicate of herself who's easy to confide in, maybe she's said too much already. Maybe she's even admitted too much to herself. Moments pass in silence. Pretty sure Harry's dad used to talk to her a lot. What? The blind girl. He did? When? I don't know. Years ago. How is that possible? I mean, from this place. What? Earthsea? I don't think I get the question. You still don't seem to understand. We're all inside... Never mind. What were they even talking about? I have no idea. You wanna look? Look at what? Just a minute ago, I swiped his phone. You stole John's phone? Yeah. I steal stuff sometimes. Habit's probably just in my DNA. Yeah, let's take a look. Vriska hands over the phone. It exhibits decades of use. This is not the device of a man who frequently upgrades his technology. There's no password to unlock it. Vriska scrolls upward on the text exchange for quite some time. How far back does this go? Not sure. Before I was hatched, at least. This is all weirdly flirtatious. Yeah. Tavvy was just like that with a lot of people, though. Still, it's a little jarring. It's all kind of blowing my mind. You know what this means, don't you? What? You can contact her. Holy shit. Vriska clicks on the reply field. Her thumbs hover over the digital keys. What would I even say? Tell her you love her. Oh, shut the fuck up. But seriously, I have no idea where she is, or what she's doing. Is she old now too, like everyone else? That would feel weird. Only one way to find out. Vriska stands up and paces in circles around the vanquished bard. Vriska maintains her relaxed position while studying in the cloud shapes again, providing Vriska with a wide berth for this critical rumination. Finally, Vriska stops pacing and begins typing. Hey, Tavvy. This isn't John. It's Vriska. Chapter 38. Roxy tugs at a piece of hair behind her ear with one hand as she checks the time on her phone with the other. John's not late, but Roxy's run out of things to do except wait for him, which is both comically appropriate and annoying. It's not like she'd been cleaning up for his visit or anything, more just wandering through the house, looking at everything through his hypothetical eyes, things that changed since he left, things that stayed the same. She figured there'd be some point when they talked face to face again, what with the vast expanse of time laid out in front of them and all. But she'd still been surprised when Jake arranged a friendly visit and ended up asking in hushed tones if she'd be willing to see John again. She'd been open to it from the start, but Jake insisted on this absurd sequence of clandestine meetings to ensure they'd be safe from Jane's watchful eye. It took an exhausting degree of assurance for her to convince them that John could just come over and that Jane didn't have the house bugged, and she wasn't about to come and have him thrown in prison for having the audacity to want to see his own family. Now that the day of the reunion has arrived, Roxy is just ready to get on with it. The knock at the door is almost too quiet to hear. She exhales, fluttering her overgrown bangs, and goes to answer. He's even beefier than she remembered, but his posture has turned in on itself like he's trying to seem small. God, this had better not be another self-flagellation fest. She's prepared to handle a fair few apologies, but there has always been a cyclicity to John's contrition, and she can only handle so many self-absorbed attempts at communicating remorse before her head starts feeling like it'll float away from her body. What's up, John? Long time no see. John smiles at her through his hair as he waves hello. One quick slice of his hand through the air, twisting at the wrist. Comes off as shy and boyish instead of a hangdog. A good sign. Maybe her jokey casual approach is the right one. That would be handy because that's really the best angle she's got. She mirrors the movement with her own hand and steps aside for him to come in. Huh. All right then, pal. I do believe you know the way to the living room. Yep. Thanks. He clears his throat and follows her gesture. She walks a little behind him, watching his eyes catch on the things she expected. Coat rack covered in scarves, the wall of family photos, a super badass sculpture of some Czech guy made for her that John always said was weirdly sexual for them. He looks at it now like it's something from an almost forgotten dream. Roxy sighs. Sorry for staring like an idiot. I just got done with the whole week of feeling weird about hanging out in my dad's old house again. Kind of forgot to think about how it would be surreal coming back here, too. Some kind of nostalgia whiplash, I guess. Fair enough, yo. She faces him, seated cross-legged on the couch, a polite distance away. He looks past her, almost through her, like he usually does. She knows him well enough to know what he's politely not asking. Harry Anderson's out, if you were wondering. I'll scoot back home later, so if you make it through round 1 of Awkward Ex-Family Convos, I'm happy to say you can be rewarded with another. Oh, cool. I'd like to see him, if it's okay with both of you. Yeah, we chatted about it. But, like I said, one thing at a time. Let's me and you tear this old Egbert Lalonde estrangement band-aid right the fuck off and see what we got going on underneath it. John laughs, and there's a shadowed flicker of warmth to it. Roxy immediately wants to fan it to make him laugh for real, but she knows by now, it's not her job to make him happy. That was something she gave up on years ago. But wanting to, that still feels as fresh as it always was. Sounds like a plan. So, I've been doing a lot of thinking recently, and I've realized some things. Some stuff that involves you, and some that doesn't, but all things I think you deserve to know. Whew, okay. Let me think where to start. You know how Jake left Jane? I mean, I assume you know. Though, no offense, but Jane's version might be skewed. Oh, no. I didn't hear it from Janie. Harry Anderson filled me in on what he got through the teen grapevine. Oh, are you guys not... Never mind. I'm sorry, I came to apologize for my shit not prying into your business. We don't have to talk about Jane if you don't want to. Roxy shrugs. She's still working through what she feels about distancing herself from Jane, but John actually isn't the worst person she could talk to about it. If he's truly about to be real with her for the first time in forever, she might as well try to meet him halfway. Jane and me haven't been super tight as late. What about politics not coming in between friends and all that? Well, turns out, sometimes someone's politics make it pretty clear what kind of friends they value, or don't. And, I don't know, sometimes people you used to like when you were a teen grow up to be assholes or whatever. I think I was clinging on to something just to prove to myself that I was doing stuff right. Whole rollout, hell normal, very good at sticking with friends. The more I thought about it, the more I figured holding on to that one thing made me lose out on some other shit. You might relate. Well, you got me there, I guess. Anyway, I'm not trying to take up your big speech time with my stuff. You were telling me about how Jake and Janie finally went splits ways and how it gave you some kind of epiphany. No, it's cool. I'm glad to hear it. We came back to your shit after my shit, maybe. We can come back to your shit after my shit, maybe. But yeah, Jake, he and Tavros are living with me now. I think for the foreseeable future. We were expecting Jane to kind of have a fit about it, but all we've gotten so far are some divorce papers. She knows where Jake is, and she hasn't had a drone fleet dispatched to nuke my house off the planet. I think that's a good sign she's actually letting them go. Which is kind of surprising, but, good, I guess. Okay, I'll be the first to admit that Jane's turned into kind of a jerk lately, but, you know, she's not actually, like, literally evil, lol. That's debatable. Sorry to disappoint, but Jane's just a person, and you can't actually blame her for everything that went wrong in our marriage. Like, I was her helpless thrall or something. That's not what I was saying. Okay, neither of us came to argue about what Janie did. About Janie, did we? You're right. Let's just not talk about her. Yeah. Anyway, I've been doing a lot of thinking about how things got to be like they are. I guess I'll just come out and say it. I completely fucked up your entire life. Not gonna pretend like there are two sides here. It's my bad. Totally. Like, not just what happened to our marriage, though it's also true that that's completely my fault. But even before that, I think I just fucked up on this massive fundamental level. And it's what I did, or, well, what I didn't do, that caused every stupid bullshit thing about the way this world is. None of this was supposed to be this way. Honestly, it doesn't feel right that we got married at all, does it? Your life was heading in this whole other direction with Callie, and I just I don't know. I kind of took that from you. I think I ended up taking a lot of decisions from a lot of people. Everything took a backseat to what I wanted. Whatever cosmic significance the lives here do or don't have, all the pointless suffering I've created is inhumane and... Oh, nah, I'll stop you right there, my man. She feels a little bit bad cutting him off. This conversational space they've carved out for themselves is balanced on a tenuous trust, and she doesn't want to scare him away. It's just that she could feel his whole speech gathered up inside him, poised to gush out in a long rote ramble, and it's frankly just some bullshit. She knows more than he does, and she doesn't need to hear it. She's not a kid anymore. She doesn't have to pretend someone else is right just to keep the peace if she doesn't want to. I'm sorry, John. I love you, but this is some hot steaming horse shit. What? John's gaze slides over to focus sharply on her face for maybe the first time since he showed up on her doorstep. Goosebumps trail down her shoulders, but she doesn't let the closeness of it distract her from her frustration. It's just some real jerk-off emoji stuff is all I'm saying. You think your choice mattered so much that no one else's could measure up? And what? Did you get what you wanted? Did your life end up the points got tallied? Oh, did your life end and the points got tallied and you came out on top? Or like, what? Still pretty much seems like we're moving to me. And you sure don't seem like you're winning, so where's all this good shit you got that you gotta go around handing out apologies for? Also, damn, dude, while we're at it, you forgot to actually say sorry in that apology. No, I didn't. I just meant... I'm sorry for fucking up your life or making it not... I like my life. I mean it. I mean, it ain't perf. And I got my share of fuck-ups and mistakes in there, but you don't gotta tell me it's fucked up. Or that it isn't real or something. It's mine. So much for the jokey, comfortable approach. She tilts her chin up and tries to breathe evenly as she holds eye contact. He's been looking at her, really looking at her, and she doesn't want to blink, just in case that shatters it. John doesn't respond. He just sits there with his mouth hanging open, staring. He blinks a few times, slow, but he's still focused completely on her. The corners of his still open mouth pull themselves up helplessly into a smile. What are you looking at me like that for? No, I'm sorry. It's just... I used to be so angry that you wouldn't tell me what you really thought before. Not like what I wanted to fight, but like... I'm just not used to this flavor of Roxy. Sounds to me like you just disproved your own hotshot theory then, genius. Huh? You wished I was one way the whole time we were married, but I wasn't. But now you're all convinced you're the only real boy in a crowd of puppets. Here I am, being me just like you ordered, only I did it without your help. Wind your zoom, my man. I'm not acting like this now because you want me to or because you don't want me to. I was bad at standing up for myself then, and I'm learning to be good at it now. Got my own self-actualization train. You're just pulling into one of my many Roxy figures, some shit out stations right as I built it. But you were never like that before I... Dude, where the fuck do you get off trying to decide what is or isn't me being like me enough? You think people really stay the same their whole damn lives or what? You've really never felt like anything about our lives here was off? Off from what exactly? The way things should be. What does that mean? John's mouth opens and closes. It seems there's something stuck in the spokes of his rhetorical tire. Roxy can see the gears struggling to turn in his head. She almost feels bad for him. Roxy lets herself take a moment. She doesn't want to reassure him with lies to tell him he's never fucked up anything in his life. But she doesn't want to twist the knife of blame further into him than it needs to go. So she shrugs, looks her ex-husband in the eyes, and tells him the truth. I mean, I felt something, I guess. But it's not just you. You've never been the only player in this game, you know. Do you not remember who all was there when this all kicked off? Me and Callie wouldn't have told you you had a choice. It was all just some meaningless bullshit. It's not like I was ever some master seer of all that ever was or will be, but I do know a little bit about what could have gone down if things were different. And you know what? I like the way things turn out just fucking fine. So maybe you could stop wasting precious eternity thinking you're so special and it's your fault everyone's not perfectly happy. John is quiet. Roxy has more to say, maybe. More things she's half thought about but never quite put words to regarding the paths her life could have taken. This has already been a lot of truth for one moment, though, so she pats John's knee and walks to the kitchen for some water. A glass in each hand, Roxy leans against the counter, breathing. She's still running on the adrenaline of getting all that out, and the surface of the water trembles with it. She watches the ripples, washes her hands. She wonders if they will ever wrinkle. When she sits back down next to John, he takes the glass wordlessly. After a minute of reflective sipping, which she is grateful for, he speaks. I just kept wanting to find ways to make everything make sense, you know? But maybe it just fucking doesn't. I know we became grown-ups in a world built specifically and cosmically for us. So I get wanting to find a pattern in everything. But not everything has to be that deep. And when you think about it, looking at it that way, like everything has to be this elaborately purposeful, heroic design to be worthwhile, it's actually pretty shallow. Oh. Yeah, I guess. John scratches the back of his head like an anime love interest, and lets out one mind-fucked exhale of a laugh. His features are droopy, his whole body tired from the mental wringer he just went through, but he's still looking at her for real. Fondness surges through her. Not in a way where she fears the reignition of any romantic feelings, it's just that she understands him, and he's starting to understand her. It's comfortable the way an old t-shirt you thought you lost but discovered in the back of the closet is comfortable. Smells mostly musty, but still enough like home to knock you right on your ass. I'm sorry. It's just so hard to not feel like a total asshole. Maybe I'm not the grand vizier of destroying time and space or whatever, but we know that there's a canon timeline out there. And it seems really obvious to me that we aren't in it anymore. So what? So what? Yeah, so what? The fuck do I care that there's some other reality out there someone arbitrarily decided was the real one? What's that have to do with the life I have now? What is there actually that makes this one mean less than that one to people who are actually in it? You never feel like it would have been better if things had gone a different way? Magic or no, I could have done a lot differently for you, especially stuck around or stayed out of your life to begin with. Or stayed out of your way to begin with. Let you and Callie do your thing or do whatever it was you seemed to be headed off to do. I just didn't expect it to be me after... Roxy wrinkles her nose. Thinking about all the lives she could have led makes her feel dizzy. Don't say that. I mean, I accept your apology this time, but there's obvs all kinds of ways shit could have gone. And to be honest, back then, with her, mostly I think I just wanted to do stuff right. Not that I knew what the fuck that even meant, which was the problem. Just like, we had this big fresh as hell start at being people. I had all these conflicting thoughts about how to be me in the first place. Like, what it meant to date a beautiful skull alien, sexuality-wise and gender-wise and person in general-wise. For a while there, I didn't know if I wanted people to think of me as a woman at all. I didn't know. Well, I guess I wondered. But the way young idiot me would have wondered, so not that deeply. And it seemed like you'd forgotten all about it when we got together. I hadn't forgotten about it. Do you want to talk about it? I could have told you then, but I kind of felt embarrassed about flip-flopping with my identity, I think. I mean, it isn't like I grew up with big air quotes society telling me what was and what was right and wrong like you did. So it wasn't any kind of shame fest, just a lot of abstract hypotheticals we only just started talking about and never got very far into. Just, I don't know, I thought I might do some things one way, but then I stopped hanging out with Callie as much. It's not like I stopped thinking about it, or her, but I never really came up with anyone else, and I didn't really feel like I could talk about it with you, so I never brought it up again. I'm really sorry you felt that way, Roxy. It's okay, it's not your fault. But you don't regret it? Not going for that stuff and instead just marrying me? I'm not asking so you can absolve me. I'm just impressed. How do you not have second guess? How do you not second guess every choice you make? I haven't stuck my head in that timeline vortex like you have, so I don't know what it's like to see the other options. I just do things the best way I think to do them and then shrug and hope it works out. Roxy thinks about time and the spirals of choice that hang just outside her periphery, and the vertigo grows. She rolls the word regret around in her brain. She feels it on her tongue. John waits. I don't think I can regret anything. There's not only one right to be me, in my opinion. I like the me I am. It's not like I went and decided, actually, hell yeah, love to be a woman and do all that shit in the woman checklist. I get that that's probably what it looks like outside my own self, but I don't care about that. Sorry, I'm not good at this whole explanation, what transpires in my brain thing. Explaining what transpires in my brain thing. John shrugs and Roxy gives herself time to think. She remembers how confusing it felt to even approach her identity when this stuff first hit her. There had been some vague truth about the usefulness of rules about how gender should be, but she never quite worked it out. She'd stopped thinking about it until she got pregnant. Then she had been so afraid that having a baby would confirm some deep truth within her that she pushed it away, but that would be too late to back out. That hadn't happened, and instead there was a strange, all-consuming bodily relief she felt when somehow being pregnant had felt right. It was good in the opposite way than she had expected. She hadn't felt any more womanly than she ever had. It had hit her then that she could think of her body not as specifically female, but as something altogether different. Hers. A flesh machine shifting pieces around to create a person. Her breast, which she'd not really known what to do with or how to feel about, suddenly had a specific, practical purpose. It had allowed her to retreat from the concept of gender entirely, grounding herself only in the physical reality of using her body to make another, two heartbeats blending in a rhythm that was nothing but human. She does not know how to articulate this to John. It's convoluted and personal, and she isn't sure she can do the overwhelming goodness of it justice. But then Harry Anderson is his too, so she knows she has to try. I don't know. This life I've been living gave me Harry Anderson. That kind of outweighs anything else just for me personally. And it's not like I ever totally quit thinking about the gender stuff. I just found a different way to work it out than maybe I was originally gonna. Touching those huge, inarticulate thoughts with words feels bigger than she expected, and tears prick at the back of her eyes. She shakes her head and laughs before John can start crying too. But, John, we're just adults. We're not dead. I don't know, I mean, we're only what, barely middle-aged in regular human years? We got all kinds of hypothetical, but still probably finite eternity to work our shit out. Who the fuck knows? It's not like you figure out who you are when you're 23 and then the rest of your whole life is just sitting back and watching your shit fall apart or not. I mean, maybe that's been it for you so far. Ouch. I just don't think I'm anywhere near done building those Roxy self-actualization train stops. Who the fuck can say how many more I got lined up? Same goes for you. If you're willing to look at this life as more than a cosmically pointless dead-end failure, that is. I guess there's literally nothing to do but keep moving forward. I may as well not be a big fucking downer about it if I don't have to be. That's a spirit. We've got 1,000,000 billion lifetimes ahead of us, John. You don't even know all the ways you got left to fuck it up in. How's that for some inspiration? It's pretty fucking inspirational, Roxy. They both smile, and it somehow felt more real and warm than it was before. Maybe the cushion of years and lack of pressure makes it so, but she doesn't question it too closely. She doesn't want to go back to where she'd been with him, but knowing they'd both been there together feels like enough. Thank you for trusting me with this personal stuff. I know partly you were telling me all that to kick my sad sack ass, but I know you don't talk about this kind of thing every day. To be real, I hadn't even let myself think about it every day. So thanks for letting me ramble at you out loud instead of just almost thinking about it once every few years. I guess sometimes it takes hearing the same shit over and over again until it sticks. That's mostly on myself, by the way. Somehow, we're just ripping off those band-aids left and right over here. A couple of professional issue discussers. Yeah, I'm frankly baffled by how fucking good we are at this. Where was this when we sucked so hard at being married? Buried under a shocking number of issues, is my guess. Well, it's nice to throw a few off for once. You're free to communicate with me instead of spending the next 300 years in a silent prison of your own making if you so desire. John nods, and as he opens his mouth to speak, the door opens. Harry Anderson looks at the two of them, all teary and laughing, and hikes his bag higher on his shoulder, shifting his weight. Roxy sees a muscle tighten in his jaw. Her beautiful, smart boy. She wants to run over and hug him to protect him from the possibility of pain at talking to his father, but she doesn't. She knows how much he's wanted this, no matter how much he jokes about it. She looks back at John and sees her own awe mirrored in his face. She wills him not to cry, not to fall back on his self-imposed suffering and blame loop. Something about the last hour must have done the trick, though. John stands up, brushes his hands on his jeans, and walks back straight toward his son. Hey, Harry Anderson. It's really, really good to see you. Do you want to go for a drive? The muscle in Harry Anderson's jaw clenches a few more times, but when he smiles, it is genuine. Yeah, Dad. That'd be cool. And the final epilogue, Candy Epilogue 8, Chapter 39. On the other side of the continent, somewhere along the border between the human and troll kingdoms, Dave and Jade navigate a densely jungled region. Though they're high-ranking members of the Resistance, they aren't decked out in the full military regalia associated with their positions. They're in camo fatigues, Dave sporting a patchwork of bright and dark reds, Jade in blacks and grays. This is the designated attire for those on scouting and reconnaissance missions, which is the nature of their current expedition. The orders came from Commander Vantis himself. This underdeveloped part of the border, mostly uninhabited for many miles, was unspeakably critical to the rebellion, according to the commander. When pressed on it, he'd claim the reasons needed to remain classified for now. Dave and Jade suspect the real reason is that Karkat can't bear to put them in harm's way, risking their heroic deaths, but they've decided to do him the professional courtesy of believing his story. The way they see it, he's finally earned a little respect by now. Besides, there's some fun to be had out here, away from the fog of war, just like the good old days during their archaeological expeditions in search of shady liberties. They fly side by side, just above the thick jungle canopy, sweeping the horizon with sharp eyes. I think I see another one. Oh, snap. Dave squints. Sure enough, there does appear to be a large rusted arm holding a torch, blurred by JPEG artifacts and covered in vines, poking out just above the canopy. It's 2 or 3 miles off the west. You're right. Another shitty liberty. Good eye, Jade. Dave takes a picture with his phone, then updates his report containing a comprehensive accounting of all the locations of every ancient Statue of Liberty his alternate timeline adult self once distributed all over this world as some sort of ironic avant-garde goof. He spent a lot of time on Earthsea, wondering when adult Dave got around to doing which specific legendary exploits in the pre-flood period of this planet when it was in the old solar system. So much time, in fact, that he turned into adult Dave himself. Was he the age he is now when he scattered these liberties in one of the boldest postmodern endeavors in human history? The thought is sobering. You can't help but feel how appropriate it is that about 5,000 years later, his work is being curated and appreciated by yet another adult Dave. Who better for the task? Jade readies another tactical bundle to be deployed inside the distant Liberty. It includes an efficient pack of capture log cards containing tracking technology, military equipment, and powerful explosives. In the event this region becomes another front of the war, the commander wants as many shitty liberties as possible seated with provisions useful to the rebellion, including the ability to detonate them at any time so that they may serve as traps. Dave wonders if his other self ever imagined they'd be used this way. He's sure adult Dave would have approved, being a fellow freedom fighter himself. It's too perfect, actually, deploying a bunch of shitty liberties as bombs in the service of a kind of liberty that is entirely unshitty. It makes him wonder if his other self on some level knew they would be used for this purpose one day. The thought of his double selfless sacrifices against clown tyranny makes him feel so proud he wipes away a small tear forming at the edge of his eye. Old age has made him emotional. It didn't used to be like this. Gotta keep it together, he thinks. Focus on the mission. Then he notices something. Just below him, to the east a bit, a lumpy part of the jungle where the canopy bulges upward slightly in an uneven, somewhat angular way. It suggests a rigid structure beneath the overgrowth. Something man-made. Another liberty, perhaps? No, this structure is different, more compact. More likely a ruined building from an ancient Earth city. It seems to call to him. Yo, Jade. Why don't you go ahead and rig that liberty? I'll be right there. I want to check something out down here first.
What is it?
I don't know. Probably nothing. Some ancient bullshit tucked away in the fucking jungle. Doesn't hurt to be thorough.
Okay, Dave. Be careful.
Yeah.
Love you.
I love you too. Jade swoops closer, gives him a kiss, then spins around and flies off to the distant, shitty Liberty. Dave watches his wife go, her tail protruding through the rear of her camo pants, swishing back and forth with a sense of unrestrained affection for her husband. He's a lucky man, he tells himself. He knows he is. Before any decades-old doubts can resurface to haunt him, he dives through the canopy in search of the ruins. Those reservations, the tense feelings in his chest, that's all in the past for him. He loves his beautiful doggy wife more than anything in the world, and that's all there is to say on the matter. The ruins are so overgrown with vines and thick trunks of creeping trees, he can't make out the shape of the building. He can barely see an inch of the exposed surface, but something is clearly there. He flies around the perimeter, pushing leaves and branches out of his way. Here's something. An old window, grand in design but broken, busted in by a huge branch that extends deep inside from years of growth. It's dark inside, hot and musty. He activates a small military-issue flashlight. Bugs scatter and fly about. He scans the boundaries of the room, shining the light around. There are an unrecognizably ancient, moldy paintings in frames hanging on the wall. And yet, the walls seem to have no corners. He knows what this room is. He's seen it before in films under much better repair than this. He's standing in the Oval Office of the White House. Plant life is covering everything, but all the fixtures are there. Moss is consuming the big desk. That flowering mass of thorny vines is where the couches would be. And over there is something he doesn't quite recognize. It doesn't seem to fit in. He steps closer to investigate, wiping away at the layers of moss and dirt to reveal a surface he most certainly does recognize. It's a transportalizer. Dave doesn't waste any time. You don't find something like this in the Oval Office and start agonizing over whether or not to use it. He steps on the platform, and in a blink, his surroundings are completely different. The centuries of overgrowth are gone, and he appears to be in some sort of crypt, boxed in by walls of smooth golden stone. At the far side of the room, something is hanging on the wall, encased in a sort of display. It's a mounted god-tier costume. I can't. Okay, I gotta give me a second. It's a mounted god tier costume, about the size an adult male would wear. He recognizes the symbol. It's the same one Jake used to wear when they were teens. It's the symbol for hope. He steps toward the costume, hears a click under his shoes. He looks down and discovers he's standing on a large button, which has just become illuminated under the pressure of his feet. The button bears a strange angular symbol he doesn't recognize, but before he can study it, something directly in front of him draws his attention. Thousands of bright particles swarm from an unseen origin and coalesce into a solid, luminous figure in the shape of a tall man. The radiance of the holographic images diminishes to reveal a man in a suit with a strikingly recognizable face. Dave draws in a sharp breath and clutches at his chest. Hello, Mr. Strider. I've been waiting a long time for you to show up. Dave's jaw hangs open. The legends have been confirmed, as well as several key headcanons of his. Without thinking, he drops to one knee and bows his head. Mr. President, it's an honor, sir. President Obama laughs amiably and gestures with one hand for Dave to rise. Come on now, Dave. Can't be having that. I'm nobody's king. I'm a democratically elected representative who took an oath to serve his country and his people. People like you, Dave. If anything, I should be the one bowing. Dave says nothing, at a loss for how to respond to such a soft-spoken words of wisdom and humility. He idles for a moment, seemingly waiting for Obama to follow through with this promised act of deference. I'm not gonna bow, man. I was just pulling your leg. Oh, okay. I just want to talk to you for a little while. Is that all right? Or do you have somewhere you need to be? Oh, no. No, sir, I don't have anywhere to... I mean, yes, sir, it's more than all right. It's such an honor to... What I mean is... Fuck. Mr. President, what I mean is I'm a huge fan of yours, and I hope this doesn't sound fucked up, but on some level I feel like I've been waiting my whole life for this moment. I know, Dave. Obama offers a warm smile. He looks down, adjusting the cuffs of his holographic suit with the casual manner of a skilled statesman. It's the body language of a man getting down to business. Now, probably weren't aware of this, but I'm familiar with the work you've done for your country in the past. For the whole planet, actually. Before you moved it, that is. You know about him? I mean, me? Oh, yes. Most people thought I was gone, but I was keeping an eye on events. Wouldn't miss it for anything. Where did you go? I was doing what you did back then, when the world needed you. I was doing what you're doing now under the same circumstances. I was answering the call. I went about it in a way no one at the time could understand. You see, Dave, no one really cares. No one can really see the big picture. That's what real leadership is about. Looking at the big picture, seeing the long road ahead, making the hard choices for the greatest good. Not just decisions that lead to a better tomorrow, or to make sure next year is better than the last, or even the next decade. You have to think about the next century, the next millennium. Sometimes, you may even have to leave people wondering if you've forsaken them entirely, because your real duty is to concern yourself with the final destination of the planet. To make sure it stays safe along the hard journey and ends up being the best home it can be for both the human race and the many newcomers to our world. Doing the right thing often means walking a long and lonely road, Dave. but I'm guessing you've already figured this out.
I guess so.
Dave pauses, pensively fiddling with the pockets of his camo pants. He has so many questions for the ex-president. He braces himself and presses ahead.
If you don't mind my asking, sir, I thought you died? I mean, I know you did, where I'm from, with the meteors and all, but from what I know about the history of the flooded Earth timeline, you served your 2 terms, then you just... A little after that, they say you disappeared. So, you didn't die?
Oh, I certainly died, Dave. Just not like they say I did. Like I said, I was just answering the call. Other brave heroes like you stepped in to fill in the void I left behind. As I knew you all would. And some say the death of those heroes was in vain. Or a waste, since the human race was wiped out anyway. Just like they say my supposed death was a waste, a loss that humanity couldn't endure. But they were wrong. Those heroes were fighting for something. Even if all you manage to accomplish is leaving behind a legacy to inspire others in the future, you need that hope to go on. Even one of those in the future you end up inspiring is an alternate history version of yourself, Dave. Haven't you been improved by the knowledge what you grew up to be in my time? Can you really say you'd be what you are today without the memory of him? Or the memory of me, for that matter? Dave considers this question seriously. He's transfixed by Obama's kind gaze and can't seem to look away. There are times when he feels relieved by the lifestyle decision he made as a kid to wear a pair of aviator sunglasses at all times, no matter what.
No, but that's all good and totally inspiring and all, but sorry if this is nosy, but if you didn't die when you disappeared, then how did you die?
Most of that is classified, Dave. Rest assured it was a heroic death that took place many years after my disappearance, upon which rested the fate of Paradox Space itself. There were loose ends to be tied up, baggage from my distant past. You know how it is. Troubles from your childhood tend to follow you, even after you move into the White House, believe me.
Yeah, I guess so. What happened to you as a kid? Or is that classified too?
No, it's not classified. Because I never even told the government about it. Can't classify what you don't know.
Damn.
When I was a boy, living in Hawaii, on my 13th birthday, I was visited by a mysterious stranger. He was an older man with a mustache, kind of a corny, old-fashioned adventuring type. Tried to convince me we were related. Of course, I thought he was full of shit. To this day, I'm not sure about that. Maybe he was. I didn't think much about his tall tale at the time, but what did pique my interest was his story. He was voyaging all over the Pacific looking for a mysterious island, which, supposedly, had all the answers he spent all his life searching for. During his travels, he set up outposts all over the ocean to help with his search, such as one near where I lived as a boy. The outpost had a laboratory, an archaeological dig site, a network of underground tunnels, the works. One time I snuck in there and did some exploration of my own. Somewhere in the maze of the underground ruins, I found a transporter pad, just like the one brought you here. Sent me to a new realm, a place they called Medium. Dave does his best not to show it, but his heart is racing faster with every word Obama says. His mind races too, with more thoughts than he can keep track of. Thoughts of affirmation, exhilaration. I knew it, his brain repeats to itself. The sense of vindication is indescribable. Others were there. Kids my age. I made friends that lasted a lifetime. Over the years, I would return there now and then, when I felt I was needed. I made one final trip there after serving my terms in office. As I said, kept an eye on Earth events. But I knew I could never return. Not with the work that still needed to be done. But before my heroic death, I made sure to have my affairs in order, to fulfill certain cosmic necessities of the future, such as our meeting here today, Dave.
Holy shit.
I captulogged a ghost imprint in my brain. You remember how to do that, don't you? I stored the imprint in this holographic projection device. See, Dave, it was critical that I had the chance to speak with you, but only when the time was right. Only once you had made it all this way, standing ready to defend the future of Earth's sea. Tears are welling up in the corners of Dave's eyes. There go the fucking waterworks again. He says another quiet prayer of gratitude for the shades John gave him. He's gotta keep it together. He tells himself there's nothing wrong with crying. Of course there isn't. Just not in front of Obama. He's gotta keep it together. He sniffs in deeply with a theatrical stoicism and crosses his arms. But on his exhale, a small choked sob escapes. He seals his lips tight, but his mouth quivers and puckers under the impossible pressures of restraint. I know what you're going through. There's a lot to be emotional about in these trying times. Hey, why don't we take a walk? You'll have a chance to collect yourself. And there's something I'd like you to see. Obama waves his hand toward a wall, and a secret compartment opens up with the traditional stone-grinding noises to be heard in any crypt worth exploring. He leads the way into a dark corridor. They walk for some time, only one pair of solid feet making audible footsteps that echo far ahead into the darkness. The light from Obama himself serves as Dave's torch. Soon, he feels calm enough to continue the conversation. Mr. President, you said I reminded you of the adult Dave from your timeline. That's right. So, wait. How did you know adult Dave if you were from the original timeline? Dave, come on now. Surely you must know. I'm no stranger to timeline shenanigans myself. Oh, yeah. Of course. What was I thinking? Anyway, no offense, but are you really sure I remind you of him? There are a lot of times where I don't feel like I'm at all living up to that guy's example. A lot of times I feel like I'm just going along with shit. Like, my buddy organizes a badass rebellion, and I'm just like, duh, yeah, alright. Sounds cool. Guess I'll scout around the jungle and rig a bunch of shitty statues of liberty to explode if those are the orders. Rig the what to do? What now? Oh, yeah, maybe never mind that. It's just a stupid mission and I'm on, and to be honest, Karkat probably just sent us on it so we don't get ourselves killed stupidly. Obama nods solemnly at this clarification. His expression makes it clear that this type of executive decision he understands all too well. But compared to that guy, I apparently turned out to be, I don't know, I feel like a lesser version of myself somehow. Not lesser, maybe just like I somehow ended up with a version of me who didn't stay as true myself as I could have. Like, I entered this world already considered a god, already famous, already celebrated as a genius. And what was there left to achieve? I still did a lot of incredible, stupid shit that I guess I'm pretty proud of. I don't know. Something feels hollow about a lot of what I've done the last bunch of years. Or, I guess about a lot of stuff in general. It's not just accomplishments or stuff like that. It goes deeper, I think. Like, Karkat managed to rise to the occasion and defend his people, but I hardly had anything to do with that. It was mostly him. He's turned into someone pretty incredible, really. You still care a lot about Karkat, don't you? Well, yeah. Of course I do. He's my friend. Are you sure? That's all he is, Dave. I love my wife. Jade has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. The day I decided to marry her and, like, get off the fence, stop insulting her by acting so casual about it, like our thing was no big deal, she deserved me being all the way into it. She deserves everything, and I know this is all true, but here come the tears again. More than a drop or two at the corners of his eyes. He blinks and they run down his face, racing beneath the lower rims of his shades faster than he can turn away. He's losing control now. His cool is a distant memory, like a dream he's struggling to remember. Obama puts a flickering hand on his shoulder. Dave feels the dense light of hologram buzzing through the fabric of his clothes, grazing his skin. It tingles like mild static electricity. My bro died a long time ago. Fucking hung himself for some damn reason. For a little while I had a bro. I could talk to him about stuff. I did a little bit, but I don't know if we ever got that deep into whatever. You can always talk to me about anything, Dave. Yeah. Thanks, man.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, I miss him a lot.
I think Dirk would be proud if you could see how you turned out. In fact, I know it.
No. I mean, yeah, I do kind of miss him, too. I try not to think about him much because, well, that's a whole thing. What I meant was, I miss Gargat.
Dave falls to his knees. He slides his open palms up beneath his shades and covers his face. He weeps quietly as Obama looks down on him, smiling patiently, understandingly.
I think I messed up. I didn't do the right thing a long time ago, and now, even though I love Jade, I feel like I'm living a lie. I try not to even think any of this stuff, but now that I'm letting myself not only think it, but say it, I feel like I'm panicking. I don't know what to do. I don't...
He's hyperventilating now, but catches himself. He has to calm down. This is no way to behave in front of a president. He collects himself, starts breathing steadily, and looks up.
Mr. President, can you keep a secret?
Yes, I can, Dave. These days, keeping secrets is practically all I ever do down here.
I think...
He runs a hand through his hair and looks back down.
I think I'm gay.
Obama purses his lips in that trademark way of his. Thoughtful, serious, contemplative. He nods slowly, letting the silence grow as if considering precisely how to deliver the most perfect arrangement of words any man has uttered in human history. Over the course of our lives, we all tend to believe we're a lot of different things. One year we're this, another year that. Later in life, you start pushing 40 and you start worrying you've been believing the wrong thing about yourself this whole time. I've had my share of doubts about all that, just like any other man. And I've had plenty of the same struggles as you, Dave.
Wait, you...
Obama nods, smiles wistfully. Dave arches his eyebrows high above his shades. They stare at each other, and in the look they exchange, they seem to say all that needs to be said between two grown men on the matter. Identity, sexuality, gender, all that stuff is about as illusory as I am, standing before you here. Is this the real me? Who can really say? Depends on what real means, what I even mean when I say me. For that matter, are you even the real you? Haven't you been asking yourself that question one way or another all your life?
Yeah.
Believing is the key to understanding the truth underlying the words, the truth underlying the ideas they represent, and the truth underlying who we are as individuals. The power of belief, power of hope. That's what endows that which is intangible, ephemeral, or uncertain with a sense of reality. Brings focus to the insubstantial, the mirages of the mind and the multiplicity of what is possible, of what could be, and isolates it, concentrates it, turn it into what it is. And the result of that, Dave, is what we call truth. Dave is still crying, but he doesn't care anymore. The tears are flowing down his face, but he won't look away. He's perfectly unashamed of his vulnerability at this moment. The only thing he knows is he needs to listen carefully to every precious syllable, to listen with his ears, his heart, his entire being. The truth of oneself can be very specific. One wills it to be. Statements such as, I am gay, I am straight, I am a man, I am a woman. These are all statements about an individual. They gain strength through the power of belief we invest in them. But there is another generalized truth about a person that can emerge when such conviction is absent. When the partitions of your mind dissolve, and the boundaries between everything you are now and everything you might have become begin to fade away.
Oh, you're talking about that ultimate self stuff.
I am indeed, Dave.
Wow.
Haven't heard about that in so long. Rose used to talk about it all the time. Dirk would have ran about it a lot too. He sure did.
Wait, you mentioned Dirk earlier. Did you, actually know him?
Oh, we've met on a few occasions.
Dave blinks. How is that possible? He killed himself.
Did he now?
Are you saying that's not what happened?
I'm saying, you know as well as I, that it's awfully hard to pin down exactly what happened to whom, depending on which frame of reference we might be talking about.
Well, so,
I learned a lot from him. Met up with him as a young man, as I was just beginning to explore the wonders of my session. He taught me about many things: combat, philosophy, life, love.
Love? Hold on. Are you saying that?
Now, Dave, I can't go around disclosing everything under the sun. Plenty of this is still under the umbrella of executive privilege. Loose lips sink ships, as they say. Obama winks again. Dave has actually lost track of how many times he's winked so far.
Right. So, somehow he met you and, trained you and stuff, and talked about the ultimate self. I remember my Dirk would go off the deep end about that stuff sometimes. And maybe it made him fucking snap, because then he just offed himself, and that was that. But Rose used to talk about it too. Probably even more, but one day she just stopped and never mentioned it again. Do you know, what happened to her?
She's settled happily into the specific. That's her path now. All of you have embraced that life in this safely sequestered version of planet Earth. All of you until now, Dave. This is why you're here. I believe you're ready to wake up. Dave suddenly realizes that they've stopped at the dead end of the passage. Obama holds up his arm and points his open palm toward the wall. The wall lifts with the comforting sound of ancient stones grinding against each other. The sliding panel reveals a recess, and in that recess stands a robot. It's a gleaming, polished silver replica of Dave, but without shades. It stands totally still, unpowered. Dave struggles to make sense of what he's looking at. Now look, a human body, even one that's been elevated to God tier status, cannot withstand the stresses put on it by the awesome power of the ultimate self. You'd quickly become sick and wither away. We can't have that. So before I died, I made sure to create this brand new body for you. I have to admit, some of my finest work, real beauty, should serve you well in your new life. A life where the world will need you more than ever, Dave. Not only this world, but the future of reality. If this sounds confusing, don't worry. You'll understand everything once I help you ascend. So what do you say? At the end of the day, this is a choice that belongs to you. Are you ready to accept your destiny, Dave Strider? It finally catches up with him. What's taking place here? Dave is sobbing loudly now, beside himself with feelings of joy, a sort of existential relief, and a true sense of purpose. He takes only a moment to decide, not to weigh the merits of the decision. He understands now that the decision was already made the second he laid eyes on the former president. He pauses only to savor this perfect moment.
Yes, absolutely. I've never been more ready for anything in my life, Mr. President.
Obama nods once, curtly, and his smile dissolved into a serious look as he closes his eyes. He extends his arm and slowly pushes his hand through Dave's forehead. The energy from the dense light form crackles and sends waves through the air like ripples through a pond. It happens suddenly, a shock of white light completely enveloping his and Dave's bodies, intense bands of lashes and pure hope radiating from their silhouettes. Dave's eyes widen. His mouth opens as if to scream, but he doesn't make a sound. Infinite experience flows through his consciousness, an unimpeded torrent of raw potentiality. He sees everything. The roads not taken, the lives not lived, the thoughts, desires, fears, all unacted upon. The doomed Daves, the Dave sprites, the Dave Pettas, life with Jade, life with Karkat, life with both, life with neither. It's like soaring through the clouds at supersonic speed, too quickly to make out the shape of any single puffy nimbus, like the breakneck jaunt through Skya. Huge clouds rushing by, small ones, clouds with visions, empty clouds, white clouds, then a great dark one. And then, The briefest possible glimpses, most too fleeting to be noticed, of Dirk. And then, nothing. It all stops abruptly, and Dave collapses to the ground, dead. Obama is holding his hand up, and floating just above his palm is Dave's ascended essence. It flickers wildly in his hand like a little kernel sprite. Obama holds it up to his face and blows it away like a dandelion fluff. It floats lazily into the chest of the robot, and with that, Obama disappears, leaving the corridor in total darkness and silence. Seconds pass, and then a minute. And then, time seems to stop altogether, as if the aspect itself has suspended its forward motion, bowing before the unprecedented transformation taking place. It defers to its greatest night, risen anew. With a deep, reverberating electric hum, the robot's eyes light up, deep red, bright enough to light up the entire passage. Its face comes to life. Its mouth, oddly pliable for a metal surface, begins to smile a little. And then, very broadly, the robot steps out of its recess and points its head downward, the searing red beams from the eyes spotlighting Dave's crumpled torso. The robot, Davebot, shakes his head slowly. The doubts, the confusion, the insecurities of the man lying here all died along with his body. Davebot smoothly reaches down, lifts the shades off the corpse, and puts them on his face. It's about fucking time. Well, that was about the dumbest thing that's ever fucking happened in Homestuck. I want to like this whole last part with the Davebot stuff because it's actually kind of cool. But how the fuck am I supposed to take any of this seriously when the underlying premise that this chapter started out on was fucking this? Like, just absolutely goofy bullshit. More than anything else that has happened, not just in the epilogues, but in the entirety of anything Homestuck related. Somehow, even goofier, and this is saying a lot, somehow even goofier than fucking ICP and Guy Fieri. Maybe not goofier, maybe they're actually about tied it with each other. I don't know. I think it's just that there's actual dialogue that like pushes it over the edge to be like, oh my fucking god, I can't believe this is happening. Ah, Jesus Christ. Chapter 40. From atop the tallest bell tower in the Carapace Kingdom, the sky looks like something painted by a crazy person. The fierce lights of war on the horizon stain the sunset in unnatural hues. Ultraviolet pigments of red and purple slash through the atmosphere in harsh, jagged strokes. The cracks in the sky above are a diseased shade of green, bright bolts receding like a lightning in a storm. Dead Jade, host to the cherub spirit, floats at the apex of the tower. The blitzkrieg above makes a kaleidoscope of color between the black stripes on her tights. Aradia glides up to meet her, having left Solix on the balcony. Above in the sky, a hole has opened up, one so big it fills the entire radius of her vision. Oh, that's very dramatic. The dead cherub says nothing. Aradia flits in front of her face and looks into her eyes. They're the same black as the vortex above, so absolutely dark that they reflect no light. I think I understand what's going on now.
Do you?
I mean, I think I understand what I was seeing. When I watched everything broke apart and got swallowed up by the black hole, which is where I ended up too, that black hole. That's basically you, right?
Yes.
And when you speak of your brother, that's Lord English.
Yes.
And he's dead.
Not just yet.
Oh. Then where is he?
I see.
Gonna keep this in cryptic suspense as usual, are we? That's fine.
Yes, it is.
I did think it was odd that we ended up in this timeline after all was said and done. Such a strange and unremarkable place to be after witnessing such awesome calamity. There's something Radia pinches her thumb and forefinger together. Off about this place. Just a little bit.
Yes, you would think so. Lesser beings have so much trouble perceiving divinity in the uncanny.
Lesser?
You have proven yourself as a valuable servant and pleasant company, but yes, you are lesser.
Okay. Well, it could always be worse, I suppose. You said that we were the lucky ones, if I recall correctly.
All in this place are luckier than those who are not, in a certain way.
But what way is that? The people on this planet seem so... Well, I don't want to be mean, but is that the paradox of living in a utopia, where everything is perfect and your every need is met? Is it unnatural for people to start crossing blades and imaginary enemies?
I doubt that's what troubles you about this world.
Oh?
What you've described is a state of empirical ennui resulting from the material circumstances here, but the material circumstances of this world have no objective existential value. This world, unlike the canonical horrors from which it is hermetically insulated, will always fail to meet the combined criteria for truth, relevance, and essentiality that would endow this realm with any real gravity. Its own naturally occurring supply of gravity, rather than the artificial supply I have given it. As such, what transpires here is characterized by experiential frivolity. Physically, it is cordoned off by the black hole's event horizon. It is safe, untouchable, inescapable.
That sounds ominous.
It cannot be ominous, because it cannot truly be anything with tangible significance. One could describe it as a phantasmal projection confined within my horizon. It was created by a choice that made it possible for that horizon to expand infinitely, to consume infinitely. And since that choice cannot coexist with canon events, this place manifested here to support its consequences. If this world were capable of anything either essential, relevant, or true in some stable combination, then it would perpetuate a corrosive paradox. As such, insulation from what is out there and the inescapable well it rests in is what protects all it holds inside. And since I am the embodiment of the black hole in which it rests, I am the one protecting this world.
Why? If it's so irrelevant, what's the point?
It is simply my duty to defend the innocent from destruction, degradation, and dissolution. But there is more to consider than just my nature. As it happens, this projection within me serves as a stable conceptual foothold from which I can sense and resist another growing threat which is determined to jeopardize the canonical plane of reality.
Ah, yes, the prince. I still have no idea who that is. Not that I doubt you, really. We had a prince who was a huge jerk who destroyed everything he touched.
The prince I am referring to electively removed himself from this reality in order to strategically consolidate his power. He cannot threaten this world, and yet, by sequestering himself elsewhere, has become infinitely more dangerous.
What makes him so dangerous? I mean, what exactly is it he can do which is more destructive than what I was seeing just before I came here? The cherub makes a rare physical gesture with her hands to begin framing her next statements. Aradia notes this and strives to listen more closely.
Physical destruction is one thing. Obliteration of the entire canvas for all of reality over a given cosmic span is another. And yet, there are even more insidious forms of destruction and subversion of life to consider, methods that are difficult to grasp for those on your plane.
Yes, I'm quite inferior, I know, but I'm also curious. Can you try me?
Of course. Let's begin by examining the nature of a story.
Okay?
It will be easier to do this if we have an example of a story to discuss. Some stories are impossibly long, but others can be quite short. Some can even be a few words. What's your favorite story?
My favorite? I don't know how to answer that, really.
Don't you like stories?
Of course I do. But do you mean like a book? A movie?
Anything. Pick literally any example you can think of.
Okay. There's a famous religious story from my planet about someone called the Signless, who I guess turned out to be my friend's ancestor, which was weird, but that's besides the point.
Yes, I know of the tale. How would you tell his story if you were trying to be as brief as possible?
Well, a religious martyr attempted to lead a rebellion, but he was killed in a horrible way and shouted a very loud, rude word in the process.
That's good. Try making it shorter, though.
Okay. A martyr tried to rebel, but he was killed horribly, and then shouted a rude word.
Shorter.
Wow. A martyr rebelled, but died and shouted rudely?
Shorter.
Oh. Okay, how's this? A martyr died and said fuck.
Perfect.
What is the point of this?
To establish an extremely short narrative for certain illustrative purposes. I'm going to repeat your story to you, and I want you to listen carefully. A martyr died and said fuck.
Okay, I listen. That's definitely the short story I just said.
Yes. But now I'm going to repeat the story, but change the way I said it very slightly. Listen again. Carefully. A martyr died and said fuck.
Yes, that was a little different. I'm not sure I could describe how, though. It was pretty subtle.
Yes. You noticed because I told you to pay attention for a difference. You noticed because you were alert to the fact that there was something to notice at all. And if you had not been alert to the fact that something could be different about the nature of the voice telling you the story, or to the fact that such differences had a certain significance, you likely would not have noticed.
I see. Yes, I think you're right.
But now imagine that I told you your story in exactly that way, that I said, a martyr died and said a fuck. But it was the first time you ever heard that story. Also imagine you couldn't see me and didn't know I existed. And imagine you couldn't even hear the story I just told with your ears. It simply entered your awareness in some other manner in a way that was impersonal, almost like one of your own thoughts speaking to you.
Okay.
Picture that this is all you have ever known of this story. The only way it would ever occur to you that the story could be understood by another. And then one day, you meet me. You look me up and down and regard me as the discrete, specific individual that I am. And I decide to tell you this story again using my own voice. And it sounds exactly like this. A martyr died and said fuck. Does this change the way you perceive the story you were originally familiar with?
I guess a little bit. It's certainly a different way of hearing it, but at least you didn't change any words, so I guess it's not all that different.
Exactly. I didn't change any words, but then it was a very short story I told, wasn't it?
Sure was.
Now, imagine it was much longer, and that was only the first line.
That's easy to imagine. This was a long story.
Quite true. A story as short as the one we've been using cannot accomplish much when it comes to guiding and manipulating one's awareness and emotions. It is compact, ostensibly commanding a simple and meditative moment of reflection, as a short poem might. The narrative it delivers is freighted with inference. It is a pattern imprinted upon the imagination consisting solely of cognitive dark matter, or a sort of notional negative space. But longer stories have the power to draw consciousness into them. They possess arresting and hypnotic qualities, which can be used by the tellers to alter the awareness of the listener. Again, I'd like you to imagine this is the only way you've ever known this story. But it continues. A martyr died and said fuck. His final howl of profanity reverberated through the ages. It inspired his devotees during the darkest times of a brutal regime. His lessons were guarded, kept secret, espoused in the shadows of tyranny. A vision of peace would inspire those who'd never conceived of it. And though his vision was gruesome, though his death was gruesome, it opened the world to a feeling of hope. This hope echoed throughout the ages. It gave his disciples the strength to persist as they perished in droves. It was the only light to shine on a dark planet for millions of sweeps. And if you are the one so devoted to his teachings, who sees truth in his words, it may be said with great authority that you are wrong. You are foolish to believe his lies. His martyrdom is false, his sacrifice hollow. Repent for your adherence to this illusion now, and perhaps leniency will be your reward. What just happened there? I brought to your attention that the story you were listening to had a speaker with a specific identity. And where there is an identity, there can also be an agenda. I gained the power to bend your consciousness to become more amenable to my narrative agenda by lulling you into a more receptive state through the established rhythm of the story's telling. This was the only possible because you are not initially questioning the identity of the teller or even considering that there was an identity to consider. I guess you're right. Hence, we may view any story as speakerless or spoken so as to bring designations to the duality I have just presented. A story may remain speakerless from the beginning until the end, offering no reason for its listener to ever imagine it is one of the spoken sort. It can also be spoken from the beginning, which is an upfront announcement to the listener that it carries the perspective of an individual. But a spoken story may also disguise itself as one that is speakerless, as mine just did. The speaker may reveal herself well after speakerless conditions have been established. And then one may ask, was it spoken by that individual all along while it remained masked, or has the speaker suddenly intervened to command a heretofore speakerless tale? Well, in your case, it certainly did seem like you were the one speaking all along, but using different voices. That's true. Not all situations are like the one I just demonstrated, though. For as long as the hypothetical speaker of the speakerless story remains masked, then it is true that the story could be seen as either speakerless or spoken. Both are true, as well as neither. It is best seen as a null factor until there is a departure. Once a hidden speaker becomes unmasked, then retroactively the story may be considered spoken all along. And so too do we retroactively change how we regard what has already been spoken. Yeah, I guess with our martyr story, by revealing yourself as the teller, it turned out you weren't even sympathetic to the very story it seemed you were trying to get me invested in from the beginning. Almost like a mean prank. Yes. And so, there is a very dangerous and destructive quality to these nebulous forces with which I have gone to some lengths to demonstrate for you here. Not everyone who is affected by these forces is fit to fully grasp their insidious qualities, or the sense of urgency that they must be resisted with. This is the sort of corruption I must now dedicate my existence in this new body to ending, once and for all. The cherub falls silent. Aradia takes this to mean this lesson of sorts has ended. She ruminates on it all for a while before speaking again. That's all pretty neat, I guess. So, does this stuff have anything to do with this big hole that just opened in the sky? No. Then, what are we doing here, O Great Muse? Aradia starts giggling. Above, the sky yawns open a little wider. Aradia waits but gets no response. Even now, when you're being uncharacteristically forthcoming, you're still impossible to talk to. I understand that, though. I was like that, too, when I was dead. Like what? Irrepressibly cryptic. I see. So, Can I at least take a guess?
Yes.
He's coming through there, isn't he? Your brother?
That's correct.
Are we in danger?
He will certainly be very angry, but he will also be wounded. And even on his best day, he would be no match for what I have become. The cherub drifts higher and higher. There's a glint of color at the center of the abyss, a flash like a star going black on the rim of a dying galaxy. Aradia follows behind the cherub, unable to pull her eyes away from the eerie phenomena overheard.
What will you do when he comes?
The cherub is focused on something very small falling from above. The bright object flutters down from the broken sky and lands in her host body's outstretched hand. It's a feather, burned at the edges, flickering orange and green. Consume his body, absorb his essence, and then using this host, I will generate enough power to move beyond the staggering pull of the event horizon, encasing this world. A prison of my own making, which can be escaped only through the supreme unification with my other half. It is crucial to the cosmos that I succeed. The Prince of Heart has to be stopped. And I believe, this is a completely different postscript. So, last page. Elsewhere beyond the horizon, a spaceship tears across the starfield at warp speed. Each dot of distant light stretches to become a spear, hurtling in the opposite direction of the craft faster than any photon ever fired from its surface. The ship was brand new when it departed from Earthsea, and it doesn't look a day older now, even though many hundreds of days have passed. It seems to be built to look somewhat like a shark, by a designer who wasn't totally sure how many fins a shark had, nor where exactly to stick them on the beast's body. Inside, a hot iron smooths the fabric of an elaborate garment, releasing a gentle hiss of steam. At a glance, it looks like the top to a god-tier costume, but it clearly isn't standard issue. This one is more stylish, more ornate, more anime. Sometimes one finds there simply isn't another word that would do to describe some sick gear. The iron eases the wrinkles out of the icon emblazoned on its chest, a hot pink heart, bisected vertically, hollow in one half. A shiny, graceful metal hand puts the iron down, removes the garment from the ironing board, and reaches for the pantaloons. She isn't even sure how he gets these things so wrinkly. Perhaps it's all the time he spends training in the hypergravity chamber, assuming they've got one of those on board. Then again, there are times when he seems so high-strung, he could wrinkle a good anime costume sitting perfectly still in an armchair. She drapes the pantaloons over the board, then pauses to reach for the candy bowl nearby. She doesn't actually need to eat anymore. The entire concept of eating has been upended for her. It's not about sustenance or even necessarily about enjoying certain flavors. It's more about staying connected to a vestigial habit reminding her of the humanity she's been forced to abandon. Not just any kind of candy would cut it. The sensors on her metal tongue are very particular. Weaker than taste buds and arranged differently. These would taste like some combination of battery acid and wasabi to a human tongue, but to her, the flavor is mild, exotic, certainly worth snacking on to pass the time. Human teeth wouldn't stand a chance of cracking these, but hers make short work of turning the candy into fine gravel. One of her more reckless shipmates chipped a tooth trying once, despite repeated warnings to stay away from the stuff. The iron hits a snag on the pantaloons, putting an awkward crease in the ridiculous, billowing fabric. She curses and puts the iron down. She decides laundry day is finally over. The guy can just wear a wrinkly pair of pants today for all she cares. It's not like he has an audience, despite his best efforts to behave as if he did all the time. She doesn't really enjoy doing laundry or ironing silly anime ensembles, and she considers herself nobody's maid. It's just that there hasn't been much to do on this ship. It's not like the old days of her long-range interstellar travels. That halcyon period riding a meteor across the abyss for years with an atmosphere of camaraderie, feelings of optimism. A rewarding, transformative rewardingly transformative period in everyone's young life. She guesses this is just what things feel like on a long journey when you're older, and with a much smaller crew. She turns off the iron, then wanders off down a corridor. It's nothing like the meteor in here. Bright, futuristic. Skynet does build a lovely ship, she has to admit. She turns a corner, and her foot kicks something. It's a stray ruby slipper. The other is about 10 feet away, down the hall. No sign of their owner anywhere. She'd sigh, except she doesn't breathe anymore. She doesn't consider herself to be her mate either, but she reaches down to pick up the slippers nonetheless. She enters a room central to the ship, one that she visits now and then, possibly for sentimental reasons. Or maybe it's just to creep herself out. Situated near the wall is something that looks like a rather elegantly designed iron lung. It's mostly made of glass, with polished silver trim around the sides and base. There's a digital monitor on the wall. She approaches and places her hand on the glass with a faint metal clink. She used to live in this body. She's dressed in the same clothes she was wearing the day she slipped into the coma. A special tiara replaces her typical hairband, lined with blinking transmitters. The device beams her awareness directly into her current mechanical avatar. She presumes it utilizes the same technology that Jade's grandfather once used to build a dreambot for her, which functions similarly. She knows she'll never be able to inhabit this sleeping body again. She honestly can't decide whether that makes her feel sad or relieved. She ponders the future of her old body. Will it all work as planned? She has to believe it will. It is the only path to achieve permanence for these tenuous bodily accommodations. A jarring sound snaps her out of her reverie. It's an alert, beeping urgently from the cockpit. The robot leaves her entombed living body and runs quickly through the winding corridors. She sits down at the helm and examines the monitor. A new planet is within center range. She studies the millions of statistics all pouring in at once. Her pupilless eyes take them all in simultaneously, her head needing only to move a quarter inch from side to side to pan her vision across the data. It's an M-class planet. Right size, right age, right distance from the sun. There's no advanced life yet. It's exactly what they've been looking for all these years. Her heart doesn't beat any faster because its pace is regulated by an internal chip. She consciously accelerates it anyway. It's been a long time since she's had the occasion to feel exhilarated. She missed the sensation of the old flesh ticker acting of its own accord. The thoughts in her powerful brain race. What will they name the planet? How long will it take for the ship to arrive? Once the new race has established an advanced enough civilization thousands of years from now, who will the lucky kids be? The ones who get the chance to play what will arguably be the most important session in the history of Suburb. She holds her thoughts. They can wait. There's so much to discuss. She taps a button and lowers her head a little closer to a mic on the panel. Dirk? She supplies a courtesy pause, as if waiting for him to reply. He usually doesn't. You're going to want to come see this. Enough time goes by that she begins to wonder if he's asleep. But no, it's just the irritated silence of a man who knows he isn't currently dressed well enough to attend to something important.
Are my fucking pantaloons ready yet?
And that's all of it. Holy shit, I actually finished it. Holy shit. It feels like I've been reading this for fucking ever. When I started this, I expected it to be like less than half the size it actually was. When I actually found out like the word count on this thing, I was stunned. And yeah, that took about as long as I would expect it to. But I'm done. I'm done. And I can move on to Beyond Canon. I'm actually really excited to do so. I'm actually really excited to do so. Like I said, I'm gonna be so happy to finally get back to this being a comic, because I really enjoy the art style of Homestuck, the characters, the designs, just everything. I loved Homestuck as a comic, and I'm going to be really happy to get back to it being a comic. As for my actual thoughts, all I'm going to say for right now is very mixed, but leaning positive. I genuinely do think that, while this was in many ways kind of a mess, I think it had enough really good and interesting things to make up for it. And to be completely honest, that's kind of how I saw the original Homestuck too. Like, Homestuck is a mess. Homestuck is not perfect. It is it is, it's also a mixed bag. But I always thought, there's enough, interesting, very intriguing things in here that totally make up for it and make me love it anyway. It's kind of how I feel about this as well. Is I actually did really love this as a whole. There are certain things that I have reservations about. There are certain things that I think were either unneeded or just kind of worsened the product overall. However, as a whole, I think the questions it raises, the plot points it introduces, the things that it sets up going forward are good enough that I can pretty confidently say I loved this quite a bit. As for my detailed thoughts, I'm going to need a bit. I'm going to need a bit to kind of ruminate on all of this because I have lots of thoughts about this, to be completely honest. Like, there's so many things to talk about. That's part of why I love it so much. I feel like there's so much to talk about with the epilogues. I'm going to stop recording. I'm going to think about my thoughts. Probably, check in with a couple short final thoughts. But I guess that's it for now. So, I was thinking about it for a couple minutes. Some detailed thoughts to leave this off on. And, like I said, overall I enjoyed it. I want to go into a bit more detail about what specifically I like and don't like. And I'm going to start with the things that I don't like because I would like to end it on a positive note. And like I said, I overall feel positive about it. So I don't want to dwell on the negative things too much. However, as far as things that I am wary about, I think there were quite a few scenarios where the writers kind of just went a bit too far for no particular discernible reason. And just like I said about actual Homestuck being a mess, just like I thought this was a mess, this was also a problem in original Homestuck. Let's not get it twisted. There were things in the original Homestuck that were very uncomfortable for no real reason other than to be trolly or just specifically to be uncomfortable intentionally. There were a lot of things that felt like that in this too. And just like with the original Homestuck, I think that kind of dampens the experience. I just wish a lot of that stuff was gone. The stuff about Dirk being transphobic was that was fucking weird. What a odd detail to include. And I would love to know from whoever put that in there. I would love to know if there was any particular reason at all for that existing besides just being making him more unlikable or something. If anybody has any kind of genuinely good characterization or analysis that they can pull out of that, please tell me, because I can't. I don't know what the point of that was. It just felt weird. A lot of the stuff with Gamzee, ever since Gamzee first came back in the God Tier uniform in the original comic, he's just kind of been, I don't know. it's conflicting. Half of his scenes are really, really funny, and then the other half are just genuinely uncomfortable to read and like not really funny enough to make up for it. Just really fucking gross a lot of the time. Without the goofy visuals of the comic, a lot of those things that are just gross were made worse because you, like I said, you don't have like a goofy visual to go along with it that makes it seem a little bit less serious. So it's just like just reading these words is like ugh, just, Jane, I think, is maybe I think they might have mishandled her a little bit. This is where I'm going to transition from bad into good, because one thing I actually like, I like how exaggerated and unbalanced the characters are. I've seen that some people do not like, in fact, a lot of people do not like that, and that's one of the main things that people do not like about the epilogues is like, a lot of the characters, they'll like do like out of character things. And I don't like that criticism for a few reasons. One, there's a few things going on here. First thing is that, it's been years since we've seen these characters, and they're realistically would have changed in that time. Seeing them when they're 16 versus when they're in their 20s versus when they're in their 30s, entirely different things. And to me, it is completely understandable to change certain things about a character in that time frame, and we don't see the in-between. We see point A and we see point B, but we don't see the path that they took to get there, so it can feel a bit jarring, but it's not bad, I don't think. And the other thing on top of that, which it's hard to figure out how much of each is going on, because some of it is that, and also some of it is the characters intentionally being too exaggerated in a couple of their most basic personality traits. Intentionally. Because of the dichotomy of the meat and candy timelines. So either way, they would have changed just in a regular, straightforward story. But because it is separated into meat and candy, where meat meat emphasizes certain aspects of the story, candy emphasizes others, they do the same thing with the characters, where they take these little personality traits or little inklings of places the characters could have gone, and they emphasize those to the maximum. And if you just wanted a fully straightforward sequel to Homestuck, or just an epilogue that wrapped everything up in a straightforward way that didn't stir the pot, first of all, I don't know what the fuck you thought you were reading, because when has Homestuck ever done anything that was straightforward and not like controversial in some way? But I digress. If that's what you wanted, I can understand how this would be very frustrating to you, because it's not that. It's not straightforward. It's not balanced. And that's the point. That meat and candy are both timelines that are fundamentally unbalanced in some way. They both have a narration and a narrative that is biased towards specific elements of the story and specific traits of the characters. And I feel like it draws direct attention to that and says, like, this is not necessarily right. This is not the one objective way that things could go. And that's one of the other things I love about this story. And I'm gonna, before going on to that, by the way, if you couldn't tell, this is kind of just me rambling. I don't have this necessarily structured, but before I go on, I would like to say, that being said, I think maybe they went a little far with Jane. I think it's good that the characters are unbalanced. It's good that they are taking them to the extremes and doing these exercises with them because of the next thing that I'll talk about. However, I don't think that Jane's character was enhanced by making her so, I don't know, just like the rapey vibes, the like cuckolding shit, the like just the weird shit, you know? I mean, all of it is weird, but like emphasizing her sort of conservative personality, because she does have a bit of a conservative personality in the original comic, emphasizing that to extrapolate it into she became a dictator, probably because of, you know, part of that like Condis mind control influence and stuff. I like that. I understand it. But then also making it into like, yeah, and also she like is a like sexual deviant who like abuses Jake and like neglects him or whatever, and like all this. It's another one of those things that's just like, did we need this? Does it enhance the story at all? Does it make any of this more interesting? Does it make it more compelling? No, I would say. And again, if anybody has a reading of that is actually positive, and you think you can pull some good analysis out of that, and it does enhance the story in some way, please be my guest. Tell me how, because I don't know. Now, that's pretty much my last complaint, is I don't like some of the more extreme things that they did with the characters. I think it was just, some of the scenes were just intentionally weird and uncomfortable in ways that I did not think made the story more interesting in any way. They just kind of made me cringe, right? Now, the next positive thing I was going to say is that I love the meta-narrative stuff. I love the deconstruction of fiction that's going on here. Because, as I said, the characters are unbalanced, right? They're divided into these timelines, which are fundamentally going in different directions in some way. And to me, the epilogues, in a sense, are an extrapolation of the one conversation in Homestuck that Hussey has with Caliborn, telling him about, you know, how characters are developed and how you can give them certain voices and certain colors and other things like that. And essentially explaining to him how writing a story works. That's kind of what the epilogues is an exercise in, is saying, okay, we have these characters, we have this finished narrative, we're doing a little time skip here. There are a million ways that these characters could go, right? And obviously, according to the response to this, people have their own ideas about where certain characters should or should not go, right? And it's like calling direct attention to that, and direct attention to the fact that it is not specifically Andrew Hussey writing this anymore. It is a team of people, and those people might have different ideas about what to do with a character, what to do with a certain plot point. And what I find cool about the epilogues is that they construct this meta-narrative about authorship and about the way that not only who the author is, but what kind of story they want to tell influences the writing that you see, the directions that characters go in, because characters are not real people, right? They do not have real whims that they act upon. They are constructed, They are representations. And those representations can be made to be representative of different things depending on what a writer wants to do with them. And so it's kind of this bridge between Homestuck, which was a largely singularly created work, to the epilogues and especially Beyond Canon, the sort of post-Hussey era, right, where it is more of a team effort. And we even saw this in, all throughout Homestuck. Obviously, the music, it's always been partly a communal effort, but especially towards the end of Act 6, the entire end of Homestuck after Collide was drawn by people that were not Hussey. It was entirely made by people that were not him. And so the epilogues are sort of this interesting exercise in what does that mean when authorial figures change hands, when there can be conflicting interests in the direction to take a story or a character. And what can happen when that vision is maybe a bit too tunnel visioned, a bit too nearsighted, not thinking about the overall balance of the story, but if you're just really interested in this one thing that you really want the story to be this specific way, the lack of balance that can occur from that. And on its own, I don't think that can carry a story. However, I think the concept that sets up, bringing that meta-narrative into the narrative and saying these characters, it's not just that we're seeing two different stories, it's that these are two timelines that exist in the world. And they are fundamentally flawed in some way. And there is an ultimate self, sort of a platonic ideal of a character that can exist, which isn't true because, again, they're characters, they're representative, they're not real people with a real personality. But the idea in the world that is a thing that can exist means that, to me, what this sets up is a journey to reach that balanced state, both for the authors and also for the characters themselves. And so I think if the epilogues existed without any plans for a sequel, there would be things I still appreciated about them. But I think what I really like about it is that it's able to set up for us to explore those concepts and sort of go on that journey with these characters. The epilogues, contrary to the title epilogue, is not a conclusion. It's a starting point. It's a new starting point. And that's another thing. I can understand why somebody would be pissed off if they had been following Homestuck for years. They wanted something to finish it off, and instead, this is not the epilogue to Homestuck. This is the prologue to Homestuck Beyond Canon, right? This is the setup for a new story. Nothing is resolved here. Things are only further complicated. And if you're not on board with that, I can get why you would hate this. Personally, I am on board with that. I am on board with, fucking things up a little bit, and then we'll figure it out over time from this point forward. But I find it understandable that someone would not be okay with that. Let's see. Like I said, I'm kind of just rambling here. It's just a bunch of jumbled thoughts. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I didn't mention. I mentioned this early on, but I like that it sort of canonizes the idea of an unreliable narrator. So, Dirk and Callie, or whoever is writing the story, will have sort of their own agenda. And it goes into that meta-narrative concept of a story changing hands, having joint authorship over something. But it makes it diegetic in that they assign these authorship roles to the actual characters of Alt Cali and of Dirk. And because they have their own agendas to fulfill, the story, when either of them is narrating, is considerably different and has different priorities. And yeah, so, a lot of what I like about it is the meta-narrative aspect. I'm not going to pretend that, like, I think if the meta-narrative part did not exist, this would not be a good story, right? If this was just a straightforward narrative, it would not be good. It would not be. It would be actually pretty lame, overly melodramatic, completely unbalanced, unfulfilling. But it's not that. It is a meta-narrative. Like, the meta-narrative is core to what this is trying to do. And because of that, I end up actually really, really enjoying it for what it is. I think that's about all I have to say about it. I might have more to say, but that's at least the core of my thoughts, and that's all the most important stuff, I think. So, if you agree, or especially if you disagree, feel free to mention it. I really have enjoyed the comments talking about their thoughts on this story, and especially now that I'm finished and I have the full context, I would really, really like to have those discussions with people and see, maybe there are certain things that I'm not taking into consideration that make it not as compelling as I think it is. Or maybe there are things that I'm not taking into consideration that actually make it even better than I'm saying it is. I would love to see what other people think. I've seen a lot of snippets of people's opinions just, across the internet. But because I never finished this before and never had the context, I never actually went into detail on what they were because I didn't want to spoil myself, obviously. So now that I don't fear spoilers, tell me what you think about the epilogues. Tell me how you feel about them. And tell me what you thought about this series, if you enjoyed it. I said before, I absolutely am going on to read Beyond Canon, and I am going to record that as well. So that will also, I don't know exactly when, but it will also be on the channel. And I really hope to see you when I do that. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope to see you next time. See you later.